What's up, guys? Don't forget to smash that like button, drop a comment, hype up the video, and if you're new here, hit that subscribe and join the family. The story begins 3 years after Earth suddenly entered an era of resurgent spiritual energy, when people began exploring this new power while some awakened extraordinary abilities and were treated as heroes for confronting alien creatures. Amid the chaos of the city, Li Xiaotong is called a stinky girl by a boy while she spits blood, and she keeps the dagger stuck in him while commenting that the life of a spoiled little dog is really difficult and asking whether he didn't lose his life because of that. A blonde young man approaches, asking how she is doing and whether she has finished the game, and Xiaotong recognizes Jiang, someone's brother, saying that she stopped playing a long time ago and was waiting for him. Jiang then tells Lin Tian that he has eliminated everyone else on the team and now it's his turn, asking whether, before being finished off, he would like to say anything. Lin Tian replies that they won't have a happy ending, and Jiang laughs, saying he doesn't know whether there will be a happy ending or not. He's only sure of one thing, that Lin Tian will be eliminated now, kicking the young man while below them lies a sea of monsters. The protagonist thinks it was his own fault for leading his companions to their deaths and wishes that, if there is another life, he will never again let a beast in human skin escape, vowing that those two will pay with plasma until he plummets directly into the mouth of a creature. The system then notifies that the Supreme Martial Arts System has been activated after detecting that the host is in an existential crisis, initiating a temporal spatial rollback and warning that, due to lack of points, the return will be random before beginning the process. Elsewhere, a game is playing on the television when Tian wakes up confused, wondering what is happening and how he is still alive after what those two bastards did. He looks at his cell phone as the system informs him that the Supreme Martial Arts System has been bound to the host and that he may choose an attribute to begin cultivation. Lin Tian questions whether he not only reincarnated but also received the legendary system, vowing that those two will pay with blood. Observing the situation, he realizes he has returned to about a month before the manifestation of spiritual energy, when no one yet had any idea what was about to happen, although the resurgence had already begun silently. After that event, not only humans but plants and animals would be affected, resulting in mutations and the emergence of countless super-spiritual fruits capable of granting extraordinary powers, as well as bizarre celestial phenomena such as rainbow pillars resembling the aurora borealis, strange constellations in the night sky, divine flames falling, and heavenly thunder erupting. And whoever could take advantage of this would obtain immense strength. The protagonist believes that a month is enough time to develop to the maximum and decides to check the system's functions, receiving welcome notifications and descriptions explaining that there are 4 functions in total, including attribute cultivation and attribute fixation. Lin Tian first chooses the fire attribute, the most offensive, wanting to see what techniques he can obtain, while the system announces the extraction of fire attribute techniques and congratulates him on receiving a purple fire technique, the Burning Heaven Flame Art, the first purple technique acquired by the host. Tian becomes excited upon seeing that it is a technique of such quality, remembering that in his past life, even a blue technique already caused a sensation, and now he possesses a purple one. He then absorbs the energy as a fiery aura surrounds his body and states that this is fire attribute energy, vowing that in this life he will become strong and will not allow himself to be belittled again until his cell phone begins ringing, showing Li's name. He thinks he almost forgot about her and answers the call, while Xiaotong says she saw a purse she wants, but is short about 20,000 yuan and needs him to transfer the amount through chat immediately. Tian tells her to disappear and to go after her rich second-generation sugar daddy, asking her not to call again. Somewhere else inside a car, Li realizes he hung up and becomes indignant, asking how he dares do that and talk to her that way, while Jiang asks if there was some problem with Alipay. Xiaotong replies she doesn't know what got into him. Maybe he ate something spoiled. Jiang then asks whether she isn't going to coax him, and shows that he bought her an outfit for her to wear and show him later, while Li laughs and says he's very naughty. In another place, the protagonist is exhausted and thinks that had he known what would happen, he would have asked Yuqing which hospital she was admitted to at that time, since he went through 3 different hospitals. He remembers the moment he was beside a girl and she commented that her father thought she was sick and stuffed her with tonics that made her gain a little weight and even harmed her spiritual energy of the ice element. In the present, Tian promises that in this life he will not only protect her, but also ensure she carries no regrets when the resurgence of spiritual energy begins. In the hospital, voices echo as doctors surround a patient's bed, and one of them questions why, despite the body being normal, her temperature simply will not rise. The man begs them to save his daughter, and the elder says he will first feel her pulse, then asks where the young woman has been recently. Old Su explains that last month, to celebrate her acceptance into Tsinghua and Peking University, he took his daughter to Iceland, and since last Wednesday she has been like this. The elder states that the girl has been invaded by yin energy and needs something extremely yang to dispel it, then prescribes a list of medicines, warning that they cannot afford delays. The man thanks him and the elder says he will do his best, but the girl's resistance depends on fate itself. At that moment, the protagonist appears telling them to stop, and Mr. Su asks who he is, while the doctor asks if that is Elder Li's disciple, who replies that he has never had a disciple. The doctors move toward Lin Tian, asking who let that stray cat or dog in, and whether he realizes he is in the emergency room. Tian states that the man's daughter is not sick, but has awakened the extremely rare ice spiritual energy, and if they try to tamper with her, they will not only damage her body, but also ruin her future achievements. The doctor argues that the boy has been reading silly novels and scrambled his brain. The elder interrupts and asks how he knows about ice spiritual energy and who he really is, and the protagonist replies that this does not matter. What matters most right now is waking the patient. The elder says that then he must know how to solve the problem, and Lin recites the necessary measures: ginger 2 qian, aconite 2 qian, cinnamon 5 qian, and codonopsis 1 qian. The doctors are surprised, thinking he is far too young to possess such deep knowledge, noting that this is exactly the same prescription given by Professor Li, and suspecting he simply copied it. The elder states that his prescription is identical to his own and will not be enough to cure the patient. But Tian replies that he has not finished and asks why he is being interrupted, explaining that a crucial ingredient is missing: stardew flower. Elder Li says that although following the complete prescription would indeed allow the young woman to wake up completely unharmed, the stardew flower is practically impossible to find in the current world. The doctor doubts him and asks whether the elder truly believes that boy can cure the Su family's daughter. The old man asks how much the flower costs and says his family has enough money, requesting only a place where he can buy it, but the elder explains it is not for sale. He describes that the stardew flower has blue star-shaped petals, with a silvery glow in the center, lightly illuminating the night like stars, and that its juice has healing properties, capable of quickly regenerating wounds and relieving pain, but reminds them that such a flower existed only in the era when Earth still possessed spiritual energy, making it impossible to find now. Mr. Su then asks if his daughter will remain like this forever, and the protagonist assures him not to worry, as he said he could save Yu Qing completely unharmed. The elder asks if he is saying he possesses the legendary stardew flower, and Lin confirms. The doctor tells them not to listen to the boy's nonsense, calling the protagonist a penniless loser and claiming he must have peeked at the prescription through the surgery room monitor, asking how a mere child could have greater knowledge than him. The elder then asks how he explains the part about the stardew flower, and the doctor insists it is nonsense and sounds like a game item. At that moment, Tian sees the system opening the point exchange interface and selects the stardew flower, while the system notifies that the host consumed 5 points and obtained the flower successfully. Tian tells them to stop arguing and pay attention, showing what he brought. Elder Li observes in shock and asks if that is truly the stardew flower, questioning whether the young man possesses a legendary spiritual medicine. The protagonist asks if he can now believe that Yu Qing's condition can be cured, and the elder admits he was hasty earlier, asking him not to take offense and to treat the young woman carefully. Lin approaches her, thinking that in this life he will never allow Yu Qing to be hurt again. The flower begins releasing a gentle energy around them, and Tian brings it close to the girl's face as the doctors notice that her temperature is finally rising, rekindling their hope. Yu Qing slowly opens her eyes and asks who he is, and the protagonist simply tells her to rest well, assuring her that they will meet again soon. He informs her father that the young woman has already recovered and only needs to eat properly to strengthen her body, and Mr. Su thanks him deeply. Elder Li asks if, should he have time, he would like to have a cup of tea with him, but Lin explains that he has urgent matters to deal with and that they can talk on another occasion. The elder comments that he still does not know his name, and Tian answers while walking away, stating his name before leaving. At night, the protagonist is at home using the computer, and remembers that in his previous life, there was a post explaining some of the cultivation realms after the resurgence of spiritual energy, finding exactly what he wanted. In that life, the resurgence was so abrupt that, by the time it ended, he had only reached the third realm, the Iron Vein. The next day, sitting near the water with his eyes closed, Lin thinks that the blazing heaven flame art is truly impressive, and promises that in this life he will devote himself seriously to studying, becoming a powerful cultivator in the realm of the Emperor Lord. In a building, someone asks if Elder Li is saying he found a young man who possesses the stardew flower and also awakened spiritual energy, and the elder confirms it to Director Liu. He adds that he is certain the young man is a cultivation genius, and, if he grows, will surely change the world order, handing Lin's photo to Zhao Yue and ordering her to investigate the boy's past, and she agrees. Director Liu states that if all of that is true, the elder has made a great contribution. Meanwhile, in another place, tremendous energy surges through Tian's body, who comments that, as expected from a purple quality technique, he has already reached the second stage of the spiritual awakening realm in his first cultivation session. The protagonist notices the dirty water and complains that he has gone a day without bathing, getting up hungry and needing to find food urgently, deciding to go to the nearest convenience store. Elsewhere, Yue watches him from above holding his photo and promises not to disappoint the director before throwing something that explodes and summons a beast. Tian states that the mutations have already begun as the pressure rises, pinches his nose and says the dog reeks too much. The beast charges and Lin dodges, and when it turns to attack again, Tian leaps, releases flames and injures it, surprising Yue as she observes everything. The protagonist crashes to the ground heavily and finishes the monster, calling the creature an insolent fool before hurrying off, saying that punch only increased his hunger and he needs to buy food quickly. Yue continues watching and wonders how that is possible, who he is, and whether he really eliminated a first-order mutant beast with a single punch, also questioning that fire attribute and whether he awakened the most offensive element. Analyzing the carcass, she notices the tail was broken and understands that the crack she heard was not one of the boy's bones but the monster's tail. Wondering how powerful his body has become and concluding she must report this immediately. The next day, in a building, Tian brushes his teeth, feeling his body sore as if he had been beaten, and decides he must continue cultivating, until the television displays urgent news saying that morning the temperature at the top of Purple Cloud Mountain reached a rare 81 degrees, warning tourists not to believe rumors about heat reducing humidity and asking them to trust science, explaining that the issue would be a damaged ozone layer. The protagonist thinks that if his memory is correct, it is not the ozone layer that is broken, but a powerful fire attribute spiritual energy awakening at the mountaintop, and he must hurry there and absorb this powerful energy. Before leaving, he widens his eyes upon seeing Tong in front of him, asking for 200,000, saying she needs to buy a purse, and Tian, irritated, responds that she must be crazy, and asks if he didn't tell her yesterday to stop bothering him. Tong claims she knows he does that on purpose to make her more interested, but warns that if he does not obediently hand over the money, she will no longer give him attention, and the protagonist walks out telling her to disappear, and that it's better not to bother him anymore, saying that just looking at her makes him feel sick. In the mountains, many people are gathered while guards keep them from advancing, warning them to never cross the warning line, explaining that the temperature inside is 81 degrees and not a joke, and that anyone who enters will become dried meat. A young man doubts this and says it is exaggerated, but a corn cob is thrown and instantly turns into popcorn. People grow indignant, saying it really is that hot and telling others to stop trying to force their way in, stating that it will roast anyone to completion, while Lin confirms that everything is exactly as he imagined, recognizing an extremely powerful fire attribute energy that, if fully absorbed, would raise his strength to a new level. Tian then leaps forward and crosses the warning line, making the guard shout that some people truly do not fear death and ordering him to return immediately, warning that he will be burned alive. The pressure around the protagonist is overwhelming, and he thinks that fire attribute energy is truly devastating, causing intense pain as if every cell were being incinerated. He promises that in this life, he will become truly strong. People watch in fear, asking what is wrong with that guy and whether he has evolved, questioning why his eyes look like they are spitting fire. The protagonist thinks he cannot attract so much attention and must leave quickly. The crowd begins calling him a deity and asks who recorded the divine apparition, while others pull out their phones to film. The guard comments that he does not understand what is happening and why, if it was so hot before, the temperature suddenly stopped rising, wondering if that young man is really a deity. At night, in a building, a voice reports that at noon, a mysterious young man appeared at the top of Purple Cloud Mountain, stabilized the abnormal climate conditions, and vanished before everyone. Director Liu orders them to suppress the news about Purple Cloud Mountain to avoid panic and asks whether Yue really saw the boy defeat a first-order mutant dog with a single punch the previous night, and she confirms, saying the monster's attack did not even harm the boy's body. The director comments that they seem to have found two geniuses in just 2 days and concludes they cannot allow other factions to approach first, needing to recruit Lin into the organization as soon as possible, asking Yue to go and introduce him. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the protagonist absorbs energy, and his eyes emit light as he looks at his own hand, celebrating that he has finally entered the bubbling spring realm. The system congratulates him and grants a new attribute ability, explaining that the host can add a new element for synchronized cultivation and activate the enchantment function that allows him to permanently bind one of the body's elements to a weapon, with durability depending on the material used. Lin concludes this means he can now create his own elemental weapons, commenting on the magnificent transformation he will be able to achieve until he hears someone knocking on the door. Surprised by a visit at that hour, he opens it and asks who the visitor is, and the director introduces himself as the president of the Spiritual Energy Cultivation Association, explaining that the girl beside him is his subordinate, and that they came to talk about cultivation. Tien thinks about the association and recalls that in his previous life, after being saved by them, he thanked them, and a red-haired woman said it was nothing and that he should be more careful, leaving afterward for another mission. In the present, the protagonist decides that although that association supposedly helped him in the past, he does not intend to form ties with them in this life and asks how they found him. And Liu replies that it was Elder Li responsible for treating Miss Su, who talked about him, adding that Yu Qing has already joined the association. Tien notices they do not seem to have bad intentions. In the same place, the director asks whether he would consider joining the organization, and the protagonist replies that, for now, he has no intention of joining any institution and intends to cultivate alone until spiritual energy fully recovers. Yue comments that she knows he has become a First-Order awakened being, but explains that he only reached the spiritual awakening realm by pure luck, and that without guidance or an association, it is uncertain whether he can even reach the bubbling spring realm. She states that Earth will go through drastic changes, and that spiritual energy cultivation will be the only way out, reinforcing that the association's guidance is essential. She reveals that she was just like him, believing she could advance alone and refusing the invitation, and that it took her almost 3 years just to reach the spiritual awakening realm. After joining the association, she reached the spiritual awakening realm in less than a year, and with their support, became a powerful cultivator in the Second-Order gushing spring realm in only 3 years. The protagonist asks about those 3 years and how old Yue is, and she replies that she is almost 21, making Lin conclude that her talent is really weak, but he decides not to say anything that would damage their rapport and simply comments that he considers her a genius. Yue replies by asking who within the Cultivation Association is not considered a genius, saying that genius is the minimum requirement to join the organization. The director states that if he joins the association, it will be of great help until his phone rings and he says he needs to answer it. Upon answering, a voice informs him that a second-order mutant beast has appeared about 30 kilometers from their city, and Liu asks if it is truly second-order and what its attribute is. The voice replies that the nature is unknown, but they suspect it is related to the poison attribute, describing the creature as a giant python. The director says he understands and orders the area to be immediately isolated, stating that he and his subordinate will go there at once, ending the call. Liu then apologizes to the protagonist, saying he must take care of the urgent matter and that they will talk another time, and both leave. Tien watches them through the window and thinks that in this life he must become stronger to prevent the regrets of the previous life from repeating. He evaluates that his current strength is at the early stage of the bubbling spring realm, and that leveling up will not be so simple from now on, starting to wonder where there might be some fire attribute spiritual energy. His phone rings and Lin wonders why Kui Tianpeng is awake at that hour, and the voice on the other side begs for help, saying his residential area is haunted. Tien asks what kind of haunting he means, and Peng insists he is not lying, reporting that thunder has been echoing behind his house all day without raining even once. The protagonist wonders if this is possible and concludes that perhaps that boy really possesses a rare lightning attribute awakening ability, asking for specific details about the thunder in the area. Peng explains that it is completely dark and the thunder does not stop, begging him to save him. Tien recognizes that this is exactly the scene of a lightning attribute spiritual energy awakening. He thinks about the 3 levels of spiritual energy, which include common attributes such as water, fire, wind, and earth, rare attributes such as ice, light, darkness, and lightning, and legendary attributes such as void. Still on the phone, Lin says he will go there immediately and asks Peng and his family to surround the mountain, preventing anyone from entering. And Peng asks if anyone could really show up at that hour. Elsewhere, someone approaches 2 boys and orders them to join her on a mission, and the blonde boy asks where they're going, and the red-haired woman explains that a mountain has awakened powerful lightning attribute spiritual energy and that they must gather all of it before disaster spreads. Soon after, Tien arrives at the location with a flashlight, observing the intense lightning in the sky, recognizing that it is indeed lightning spiritual energy and believing he is facing a great opportunity. He accesses the system, which informs him that the lightning attribute is rare and requires double the spiritual energy of a common attribute, asking if he wishes to confirm, and Lin confirms. The system begins extracting the lightning attribute cultivation technique and congratulates him on obtaining the blue lightning cultivation technique. Lin comments that, as expected of a rare attribute, even a blue rank technique possesses immense power as lightning spiritual energy. Meanwhile, the redhead and the 2 boys approach the lightning, and the blonde asks if they can really handle something like that, and the other boy agrees, saying he does not know if that thermos bottle is really that sturdy. The redhead tells them to stop talking nonsense and to hand it over already. She sighs and extends the bottle as the lightning rushes toward the container and becomes even more intense, making the two boys praise her skill until the bottle begins to crack. The redhead is shocked, asking how that is possible and whether the spirit collecting device cannot handle such energy, until an explosion occurs and they all fall to the ground while the lightning continues violently. The redhead orders them to run, saying the spiritual energy is out of control, but they soon hear a sound, and one of the boys asks what it is. When the redhead looks toward the bushes, she sees Lin Tian and wonders how an ordinary person could be there, asking if he likes hiking and telling him to run, saying that place is not for normal people. Tian smiles and walks toward the source of the lightning, and the boys say he is done for, believing he is doomed and asking if he is that desperate. The lightning concentrates solely on the protagonist, who remains still, leaving the two stunned as they wonder if he is really that resistant, and whether they are witnessing a deity. The redhead tries to understand why the boy is unharmed, and whether he has awakened the extremely rare lightning attribute spiritual energy. The lightning keeps striking the protagonist, and Lin says he will not bow to anyone. In this life, he will not allow the heavens to blind him, nor the earth to suppress his determination. He wants all beings to understand his will, and even Buddhas to turn into smoke, vowing that he will become strong. The lightning begins to weaken, and the protagonist remains firm until he absorbs everything, saying it is not bad at all. The system congratulates him for obtaining fire and lightning spiritual energies, and asks if he wishes to fuse them to create the legendary Thunder Flame spiritual energy, and Lin orders it to synthesize immediately. A powerful energy envelops his body, and he states that it is a legendary energy whose power is evident. Elsewhere, under rain, 3 people stand before a gate, and one of them reports that it has been confirmed the mutant creature is a giant python with a dark attribute, and Yue says she understands, recognizing that the dark attribute is troublesome. She gives them a jade pendant and explains that in case of danger, crushing it will create a light shield to save their lives, stressing that the main mission objective is survival, and they must never force themselves beyond their limits. The mission begins, they enter cautiously, and Yue notices something before an explosion erupts. A monster appears and they retreat while attacking, freezing the python. They smile, but Yue orders them to run, and the monster breaks the ice, releasing something from its mouth that leaves the boys dizzy. Yue covers her mouth and reports to headquarters that there is a giant python, but ends up fainting as the monster approaches. Elsewhere, the director shows the protagonist the computer and says only he can resolve the crisis. Tian examines the file and comments that the attributes are dark and another rare one, thinking that if he had more attribute slots, he would definitely choose that one too. Liu states that Ling's fate is unknown and that their only hope is the young man who awakened the fire attribute, and the protagonist asks how he discovered that fact. The director explains that he asked his subordinate to monitor him and that he himself defeated a mutant dog, and Lin concludes that the dog was released by them, asking if the director sent people to watch him. Liu replies that he did it for public safety, and Tian says he can go to the factory to defeat the giant python but demands the director promise he will not be monitored anymore. Liu agrees and asks how many people he needs, but the protagonist states he will go alone. At the factory, Yue wakes up disoriented as one of the boys is swallowed by the python. She watches in horror, concluding that the monster is evolving by devouring cultivators, and that she cannot allow that to continue or the entire region will face disaster. The python charges again and releases another substance. Yue strikes, but the ice breaks apart and she falls injured to the ground, realizing the monster evolved more than expected and thinking everything is over. At that moment, someone approaches, saying he only realized where he was when he reached that spot, remembering that this horrible factory was where he worked as a cheap laborer after high school, and that the boss still owes him a month of salary. Yue recognizes Lin Tian, and the protagonist says the director sent him to escort her to the exit and asks where the others are. Yue tells him to run because he is no match for the giant black python that has already evolved to third order. The protagonist replies that he understands and that the rescued animals just need to stay still and not run away, making it clear he wants to show what he is really capable of. The python charges and Yue, even more worried, begs him again to run. Lightning appears mixed with flames, and Lin says to scatter the darkness with thunder. Tian strikes the creature and sends it flying with a single blow, leaving Yue shocked as the snake hits the ground. Yue says they cannot let it escape. The protagonist draws his sword and says she need not worry because the creature is not going anywhere today. He takes his attack stance and uses lightning, striking again with a tremendous power that shatters the beast. Lin says it is done. Yue, astonished, asks how he awakened dual attributes. Tian thinks that, as far as he remembers, the Spiritual Energy Cultivation Association never did anything wrong and always helped ordinary people overcome difficulties, so telling the truth should not be a problem. He replies that he awakened the fire and lightning attributes. Yue thinks that this guy will certainly be extremely strong in the future. Elsewhere, a voice says that Lin admitted it personally. It is Yue explaining that he truly awakened fire and lightning attributes. The director comments that now he understands why he wanted to cancel the surveillance and that someone with such talent must join the Spiritual Energy Cultivation Association. Yue asks if they will no longer monitor him. Liu comments that she needs a boyfriend. In another area, several people are gathered, and someone asks whether they should announce to the public the resurgence of spiritual energy. He says that many recent incidents made it impossible to hide the situation, and asks if they could claim everything was an accident. An elder reacts, asking if he is insane and if he understands the chaos that would arise from revealing something like this so hastily, saying it would not be solved with a few scoldings. The young man retorts, asking how he dares to say that after yesterday because if they had announced the spiritual energy situation earlier, they would have evacuated the citizens during the factory incident. The old man asks whether the problem at the factory wasn't solved after all. The young man asks if it was him who solved it and if it wasn't the boy they called, telling him to handle it properly. The old man asks what he just said. The director orders them to stop arguing and everyone goes silent. Liu says he's right. If Lin hadn't saved the day the previous night, not only would he have lost his own daughter and his subordinates, but the residents of the nearby villages would also have suffered. Even so, as another member mentioned, irresponsibly revealing the resurgence of spiritual energy would cause massive social unrest. A proposal is then presented. The marked locations are areas where spiritual energy has recently resurged and can be used as pilot programs, promoting the surrounding regions as tourist attractions to observe how things progress before the next steps. He asks what they think. The young man says they will first test according to the director's wishes. The old man comments that it was expected for the director to present such a clever solution. The director says that if there are no objections, they will move to the next item. Everyone witnessed the young man's strength the previous night, and they want to recruit him into the Spiritual Energy Cultivation Association, making him captain of a team of cultivators, and he asks what they think of that. The old man says he does not oppose his entry, but questions whether giving such an important position right away is too much. The young man asks who suddenly gets a deputy leader position out of nowhere, and says he should start at the bottom. The director says that everyone saw the boy awaken the fire and lightning attributes, and he fears that if they give him a very low position, they may displease him, or even offend someone with such potential. The young man answers that since the director put it that way, they should arrange a test for him. The old man agrees and tells them to schedule the examination, reminding them that to become captain of a team of cultivators, being good in combat is not enough. Liu adds that this is what they themselves said and that they shouldn't regret it later. The next day, the protagonist is still in bed when a sudden noise echoes. Lin wonders if a thief broke into his house and thinks he's so broke that he can only afford the cheapest instant noodles, saying to himself that he keeps stealing from himself and that when he catches this thief later, he'll make sure he truly understands his mistake. He orders the thief to surrender immediately, but the one there is Yue, leaving Tian embarrassed as he asks why she is in his house and if they didn't agree yesterday that she wouldn't monitor him anymore. Yue replies that she's not there to watch him but to live alongside him and asks where the trash can is, leaving the protagonist speechless. Soon after, still in the same place, Lin asks if she wants him to participate in that test and Yue confirms. He thinks that, judging by the timing, there's little left before the full manifestation of spiritual energy, and that he cannot waste time with a trial, saying he's not interested. Yue says she knows he's probably thinking the test will delay his cultivation, but explains that this trial was specially prepared by the Association for Cultivators, and that not only new members will participate because spiritual energy has recently resurged at the test location. Although the level is not high, there may be fortuitous encounters. Tian thinks he remembers her mentioning that Yuqing also joined the organization and asks if Yu will participate in this trial. Yue responds yes, and the protagonist thinks he remembers her saying she found a great opportunity there and becomes curious to know what it is. He decides to take a look this time, saying that by coincidence he needs to find Yu, so he will go to the trial. Elsewhere, the director states that everyone may be used to a peaceful life, but warns that the world will soon be anything but peaceful, as demise will become the norm. He says that later he will introduce a powerful spiritual energy cultivator who will be the team captain and guide them in the trial. The redhead wonders where that person went and remembers telling a partner that she really saw an awakened individual surrounded by lightning, but the old man says that's absurd and asks how such a powerful cultivator could exist. In the present, he asks what she's thinking about, and the redhead replies, "It's nothing. She's just curious what kind of person the captain will be when he arrives." The old man says it will probably be some rich second-generation heir who just came to relax there and adds that when the boy arrives, he's going to give him a taste of his own medicine to show who's boss. The redhead warns that he'd better behave and not cause trouble. Yue introduces the members Tian will lead, 5 people in total, 2 women and 3 men. The protagonist observes that, aside from Yuqing's ice attribute, the others are quite ordinary. Yue says he needs to pay attention to Tianfang, who used to be a subordinate of a triad, accidentally awakened the wind attribute, but kept the same uncontrollable personality. The director announces that the captain has arrived. The protagonist approaches. Yu wonders if he is the same mysterious person her father said saved her, remembering that it was this boy who was struck by lightning on the mountain that day. Liu introduces Tian as the captain and asks if Tianfang has any problem. Fang asks how strong he really is and tells him to show some skills, saying that otherwise, when they go in later, they will have no reason to listen to him. Lin asks how he wants him to show it, and Fang responds that of course it means sparring with each other. Tian states that this trash in the spring realm is not worthy of facing him. Fang, irritated, says he is looking for death and charges forward. The protagonist asks if that is all. The director blocks the attack and asks how Fang dares to disobey the organization's orders. Fang says he didn't mean it that way, but claims that to be captain, he needs great ability, asking if the others are not convinced. The two agree and say that in the world of cultivation, strength is fundamental, and if the new captain doesn't show what he is capable of, it will be hard to win everyone over. Liu says they don't need to worry about the younger brother's strength, since he was the one who defeated the giant python alone days ago and rescued Yue. The redhead asks if he really did it alone. Fang says he bets the kid just got lucky and questions how a single person could have defeated such a powerful black giant python. The director orders everyone to stand at attention and warns that anyone who disrupts the discipline of the trial will be immediately expelled from the association and must behave, before beginning to read the trial content and saying that everyone must listen carefully. The objective of this trial is to deal with a creature known as the Thorned Beast. According to the association's information, this creature not only has a human-like form, but can also move freely. Before starting the trial, the director reminds them that although they thought the world was safe before, when walking the path of cultivation, death will accompany them at all times. In the forest, the protagonist wonders if that is the location mentioned in the trial, but finds it strange that he cannot see the monster and wonders if it buried itself underground. Yu asks if they should go there. Lin notices that the spiritual energy intensifies as they approach the big tree and wonders why they cannot find the monster the director mentioned, saying that to ensure safety, they should not get too close to that tree and that they will continue searching for traces of the monster in the area. Fang asks if he is chickening out and if he is afraid that the giant tree will rise from the ground to attack him, making the warriors beside him laugh. Tian answers that he already warned them, and if they insist on ignoring the advice, they will face the consequences. Fang says he wants to see what the hell is there, and claims that the huge tree must be some kind of treasure since it has extremely powerful spiritual energy. One of the boys comments that the energy there is so abundant that if they cultivate in that spot, they will surely level up. Fang thinks that if he absorbs all that spiritual energy and advances to the third level of the stagnant source realm, even Leng will have to listen to him, and he orders them to start cultivating immediately while the energy is abundant. They sit on the ground and begin cultivating. Qing asks if they will be okay, and the protagonist tells her not to worry, saying he will intervene if something goes wrong. The redhead comments that a few days ago she met Lin. He asks if they have met before and says he doesn't remember, asking where it was. The redhead answers that it was on that lightning-struck mountain. Tian realizes and asks if it was her, questioning if she was having a picnic that day. Irritated, she repeats picnic and explains that she was sent to deal with the lightning spiritual energy outbreak there, all because of Captain Lin, since she ended up getting scolded by her superiors for hours. She says she told them that a man absorbed the lightning spiritual energy, but they insisted she was dreaming. The protagonist apologizes and says they should sit and cultivate too, since the spiritual energy there is abundant. Yu asks why he himself is not cultivating. Lin thinks that she is still kind, as in the past life, and replies that the spiritual energy there does not match his attribute, allowing them to keep cultivating. They are getting ready when someone screams for help. Tian asks what is happening. When they look, they see the warriors trapped by the tree's roots. Fang asks what is going on and why the branches suddenly started moving. One of the warriors, desperate, begs for help. Fang takes a fighting stance and says he will help him. He charges forward but cannot cut the tree. Surprised, he asks how that is possible. The warrior warns him to be careful. Fang looks to the side and is struck by a branch, being thrown far away as he thinks that, on the cultivation path, death truly accompanies him at every moment, and he understands why Director Liu said that. He then wonders if he will lose his life there. The tree releases a terrifying aura as the roots are suddenly cut. Fang looks in shock and sees that it was the captain who cut them. The protagonist tells him to run quickly. Fang replies that he cannot abandon his brothers and flee. Lin comments that he seems quite loyal, and Fang confirms, saying that of course he is, because they live by loyalty. Tian picks up the dagger that fell on the ground and infuses it with fire lightning attribute energy as lightning manifests. Fang asks what he just did. The protagonist throws the dagger with force, cutting the roots and freeing the other warrior who was trapped. The tree begins releasing an even more intense energy. Lin tells them to run quickly, warning that the monster is about to reveal its true form. The warriors begin to feel something strange and ask what is happening. Thinking it is an earthquake, the creature reveals itself. Stagnated Spring Realm 3, the phantasmal tree demon. They are terrified and ask what kind of monster that is. Tian asks if Fang forgot what the director and the others said, reminding him that the cultivation path is meant to be a life or death struggle, and if he fears death, he must abandon this path. The tree charges to attack, but the protagonist dodges and counterattacks. The tree stares at him and tries to hit him again. Lin, surrounded by a blazing aura, releases flames that burn the branches and then uses the fire lightning fist. The creature dodges but is struck before it even realizes it, making Fang impressed and asks if he is really that strong, while the redhead comments that that is the power of an awakened lightning attribute. Yu, equally surprised, thinks that in novels the peerless heroes ride auspicious, colorful clouds, and that it should look like something like this. Elsewhere, in front of several screens, a voice asks whether Lin really possesses so much strength, and the director asks if anyone still has objections to Tian's position as captain, receiving several none in response. Suddenly, everything begins to shake and a very loud noise echoes. They ask what is happening and whether it is an earthquake, and Yue wonders if it is caused by spiritual energy, while Lu states that it seems this matter can no longer be hidden, for the Earth's spiritual energy has fully resurged and the world's laws are about to change. In the forest, a screen shows the situation, and the protagonist wonders if, in his past life, Yuqing did not say there was an opportunity there, and since she had the ice attribute, why that tree demon, clearly of the wood attribute, was involved. A terribly strong light erupts, leaving everyone shocked. The tree collapses to the ground and Lin realizes that the Earth's spiritual energy has fully resurged, which is why a powerful ice attribute spiritual energy appeared there. He thinks that, in the previous life, Yu could not absorb that energy due to lack of strength, and that was why she mentioned that opportunity. Qing says he is amazing and that his punch made the surrounding energy explode. Lin tells her to enter the cave and absorb the rising ice attribute spiritual energy, for it can strengthen her, and he thinks that in this life the two of them will become powerful and make that cursed couple who killed them in the past pay. Tian states that an extremely powerful ice attribute energy has appeared there, and since Yu has also awakened that attribute, she must seize this opportunity to cultivate quickly, and they decide to wait for a while. At night, everyone celebrates and congratulates Qing for successfully reaching the first level of the stagnated Spring Realm and directly advancing to the third level. Yu says that all of that was only possible thanks to the captain and everyone else. Fang admits he was blind and did not recognize Lin's greatness before, asking him to forgive his mistakes, and the protagonist says it is fine, because Fang did not abandon his brothers in a moment of crisis, proving his loyalty and showing he is a true man. Fang thanks him for treating someone irresponsible like him with respect, and declares that from now on his life belongs to him. But Lin says that is not necessary, and that from now on they are all brothers. Suddenly, a voice orders everyone to leave the area immediately. It is a soldier saying they are there on an official mission and must cooperate. Lin notices that soldier is not ordinary, as spiritual energy is radiating from him, concluding that he is also a cultivator, and wonders whether the matter of the spiritual energy should not be the director's responsibility, thinking they might need to wait, while also reflecting that if the spiritual energy that erupted were of Licky's attribute or others, they could use that surge to level up. The soldier stares at Lin and repeats the order to leave immediately, asking if he heard. Fang asks how he dares speak that way to his older brother and whether he knows who he is. The soldier presses the weapon against Fang's neck and says that either he leaves or he loses his life. Fang says he wants to see what the soldier can do, but the protagonist tells him to stop. 3 hours earlier, several people were gathered discussing what to do after the sudden resurgence of spiritual energy, saying they had no time to prepare and that the absolute priority was to capture the mutant dog that escaped, complaining that they had already warned it wasn't necessary to keep an eye on that creature. The general tells them to stop arguing, stating that this is no place for fights, and that the most urgent task is capturing the mutant dog to prevent innocent citizens from suffering. He says the mission will be his responsibility. The soldier stands up and guarantees he will complete the task. The general orders everyone to return immediately to the borderline because, with the complete resurgence of spiritual energy, that region will never again be as peaceful as before, and tells the little Saul that he must capture the mutant dog before dawn, asking if he understood. The soldier speaks through the communicator, telling them to speed up the evacuation of the crowd on the east side, saying the beast may appear at any moment. Then, observing a screen, the soldier notices something and wonders what that is. Somewhere else, the protagonist tells them to stop and not cause trouble for the army, and Fang agrees, while Lin orders them to leave immediately. The soldier says they should consider themselves lucky. As they move away, Tian comments that spiritual energy erupted completely that afternoon, and that from now on they will face a very dangerous world, asking Huayun not to forget to cultivate diligently, as her foundation is still unstable and they must progress slowly without excessive ambition. Someone calls him, and when the protagonist looks back, he smiles at being called grandson. The grandson says it is indeed him, and Yu asks if that is someone he knows, hearing Lin answer that that is his best friend from high school, Sun Jung-yi. Sun jokes saying he is his good father, and Lin calls him ungrateful and returns the joke by calling him a good grandson. The redhead says they will head back so as not to interrupt the reunion, and Fang agrees. Later, in the same place, Tian comments that Sun is doing well, and that his military rank received commendations for merit. Jung says he will reveal a secret disclosed only that afternoon, and the protagonist asks if global spiritual energy has resurfaced, saying the topic has been trending all day. Sun says he knew he would doubt and reveals in secret that the roadblock is due to a powerful mutant dog that escaped into the region and that the unit is there to protect civilians. Lin wonders if the mentioned mutant dog is the same one discarded during Leng's test. A soldier approaches and informs that all civilians have been evacuated. Jung considers this great and says they only need to wait for the wild dog to fall into the trap, while Tian thinks he will take the opportunity to assess the army's current strength level. Sun says it is good that Lin knew early about the changes in the world's rules because, with his kind nature, he would certainly suffer. He asks the soldier to later take Lin to the safe zone outside the hunting area so he can observe the unit's strength. The soldier states that no matter what the protagonist's relationship with the captain is, he must listen carefully later, and Lin thanks him. They walk to another point, and the protagonist observes that although the soldiers carry weapons, the spiritual energy they emit indicates they are all around the first level of the stagnant source realm, concluding that the overall strength is not bad. Suddenly, a soldier warns them to be careful because the mutant dog is there. A noise echoes and the creature approaches with a terrifying aura ready to attack. The soldiers open fire non-stop, but it does no damage. The mutant dog counterattacks and throws them away. Lin thinks that creature possesses at least strength equivalent to the third level of the stagnant source realm, concluding that with the resurgence of spiritual energy, monsters of that level will appear easily, and that he will need to cultivate even more starting the next day. Sun orders the regular soldiers to retreat and the members of the special force to follow him, using the Xuanwu formation to corner the beast. One of them grabs the monster's tail while the others advance and attack together. Jung leaps with tremendous energy around him and strikes the creature, which spits plasma. The protagonist smiles, thinking that, as expected of the army, even if each member only has the strength of the second level of the stagnant spring realm, they trust one another and give their lives to each other, allowing their collective strength to surpass their individual level. He concludes that his worries were unnecessary and that it is only a matter of time before they defeat the mutant dog. The beast opens its mouth and releases a mist. Lin observes carefully as the smoke spreads, and Sun realizes the creature is trying to evolve, ordering them to stop it immediately, and saying that if it evolves, everyone will die. They try to approach but are thrown away. The smoke dissipates and the beast evolves. Jung says it's over and confirms that it really evolved. A soldier asks what to do, and Sun replies that they will fight anyway, as they cannot allow the creature to harm the civilians behind them. They charge together, but the beast is faster and knocks them to the ground. The distant soldiers become worried about the captain. Jung is gravely injured on the ground, believing he will die as he sees the creature approaching. But the protagonist steps in front and blocks the monster's attack. Sun recognizes his partner and Lin strikes the beast with his powerful lightning, launching it far away with an impressive blow. Jung, shocked, asks if he is a cultivator. Tian summons a dagger and says he will deal with the beast and then they can talk calmly, while the soldier asks if he is really a cultivator and states that to damage a level 4 mutant dog of the first stagnant realm with a single strike, the boy must be incredibly strong. The protagonist, enveloped by a frightening aura, attacks again. The beast tries to flee and Lin asks if it is trying to run, saying that will not happen, unleashing a strike whose power pierces the monster's body and inflicts severe wounds. Sun, surprised, asks if his partner is truly such a powerful lightning attribute cultivator. The creature falls to the ground and Tian approaches, applies an enchantment to the dagger, and cuts the beast in half. The soldiers are shocked, commenting that the spiritual energy has just resurged, and he already has that strength, saying that if they give him another year to grow, they won't even be able to keep up. Jung smiles and says that was expected of his brother. The protagonist thinks that not even the army's dagger could withstand his fire lightning power, and that he needs to find a weapon capable of enduring his spiritual energy. Sun asks if he was hiding something from him and his father, and says he never imagined he was already so strong, thinking he had just been pretending before. And Lin tells him to be careful, reminding him that his previous injuries were not light. Jang orders them to drag the beast out and says he will have some drinks with his brother. Elsewhere, someone watches Lin's battle on a laptop. A woman asks if that young man is his friend, and Sun replies that they are more than friends. They are brothers who face life and the finish line together. The woman thinks that if they could recruit such a talent for the army, the military strength would increase enormously and asks if he has tried inviting him. Jung replies that he tried, but Lin said he was already affiliated with the Cultivators Association. The woman says she will personally go there to ask about him. The next day, the protagonist enters the house and comments that he forgot she was there and didn't buy breakfast. Yue asks if he participated in the previous night's military operation, and Lin replies that it was all by chance, that he had no intention of getting involved but ended up meeting his brother asking if there is any problem. Yue says that that morning the daughter of the military commander didn't stop calling the director, insisting that he should enlist in the army. Tian asks what they answered, and Yue says the director suppressed the matter, but that the commander's daughter is not someone to mess with, and asks him to be careful in the coming days. The protagonist asks if she is trying to turn him into her son-in-law, until his phone rings and it is Sun calling. Lin answers, and a voice says it is Jung's superior. They remain silent for a moment, and the superior says there is a place with strong fire attribute spiritual energy, and asks if he wants to take a look. Tian is surprised to hear fire attribute, thinking he was precisely looking for a way to strengthen his fire attribute. The superior explains that in the beginning, during a night patrol at the construction site, they found a phantom fireball, and at the time, everyone thought it was something superstitious. So they called a Taoist priest, but unexpectedly, the priest not only failed to dispel the fire, but it became even stronger, taking over the entire site. Even with the army isolating the area, they proved powerless. Inside a moving car, the commander's daughter says that after the resurgence of spiritual energy the previous afternoon, that flame became even stronger, and that if it continues to spread, the civilians will suffer. The protagonist asked if the flame has been expanding the whole time, and the superior confirms, stating that for now all they can do is increase the isolation perimeter. The superior comments that she heard he and Yue are together. Lin tells Miss Chen not to talk nonsense, and explains that Yue is in his house only to watch over him by order of the director, but Chen says he doesn't need to rush to deny it and should just listen to the rest. With global spiritual energy fully revived, for national security they must quickly establish an army of cultivators to deal with external uncertainties, since the stronger cultivators have questionable morals, are fit for combat but cannot train new members. She says she heard Sun say that Lin's character is excellent and his strength extraordinary. Tian asks if they want him to join the army and help train these new cultivators. Chen answers that that's right, saying that as long as he agrees, all benefits are negotiable, and asks what he thinks. The protagonist says he's sorry, but he doesn't have the energy to deal with that right now, stating that he'll first focus on cultivating the relationship with the person the director asked him to look after. Chen says that's fine and thinks that it's exactly what she expected from him, a good, loyal, and upright man. The car then stops and they see a crowd contained behind a barrier, while a voice orders them not to gather because it's dangerous inside and no one should approach. They get out of the car and a voice asks what he's doing there. It's Jiang, accompanied by Tong. Lin wonders why the two are there. Jiang asks if he is her idiot and says that judging by his aura, he really does look like a strong candidate for idiot. Cameras begin filming immediately. Jiang says that although he'll never forget the past, he needs to understand that there's an unbridgeable chasm between them, while Tong says she already gave him a chance before, but he didn't value it. People get excited with the scene, calling it a spectacle and asking if the warriors of love will lose again. Tian wonders if the two of them are idiots. Chen approaches and asks what is happening. The crowd keeps filming and commenting about who that beautiful woman could be. Jiang starts drooling, thinking that having a jewel like her would make anything beside her seem irrelevant, and praises her by saying she's a beautiful lady. Chen asks if those two people are his friends, and Jiang, confused, wonders what's going on and why that woman is completely ignoring him. The protagonist answers that they are a hellish couple and asks not to delay important matters. They continue walking. People laugh, saying it's no wonder the boy didn't want that woman anymore, that anyone would trade because that one is much better than this one. Tong, furious, thinks that the wretch dared to act superior in front of her, saying she's only pretty and will definitely find a way to make her suffer. Irritated, Tong asks the crowd if they've seen enough and tells everyone to stop, saying they've already left. Jiang says it is just a professional habit and thinks that, if not for the money, he would have ignored all of that long ago. Elsewhere, Chen reports that she has just confirmed with the soldiers that the fire inside is intensifying and that they may need to further expand the isolation cordon. The protagonist asks if it must be expanded again, and Chen confirms, saying that unless they find a solution, there is no other way, since that is exactly the place filled with fire attribute spiritual energy mentioned the previous day. Lin asks what the item she is holding is, and Chen replies that she can consider it a machine for detecting the concentration of spiritual energy, noting that they will have to expand the confinement area once more. The perimeter is being extended by 5 kilometers. A soldier asks what Lin thinks she is doing as she approaches and requests instructions, while Chen wonders whether he can really control that flame. The protagonist approaches the flames and the system asks if it should absorb the strong fire attribute spiritual energy detected. Lin says they must absorb everything. The flames intensify, creating pressure throughout the area. Chen thinks it is an extremely powerful aura and wonders what cultivation level he has, imagining how high he will reach if he absorbs all the fire attribute spiritual energy, level 4, 5, or 6 of the stagnant spring realm. The system notifies that 100% has been absorbed and that the fire attribute spiritual energy has reached level 2, granting the reward of a chance to obtain a new cultivation technique. The system congratulates him on the evolution and enables the drawing of a new technique. Tian confirms and is surprised when notifications appear indicating that the technique obtained is the Sacred Flame Immortal Art, a golden fire attribute cultivation technique, also receiving reward points. The Sacred Flame Immortal Art allows one to store fire spiritual energy in the body and release it directly during attacks, causing widespread damage. The protagonist tells it to absorb even more intensely. A powerful aura fills the environment and the pressure rises, leading Chen to wonder what kind of monster that boy is and whether he truly intends to absorb all that spiritual energy. A soldier asks if he is the reincarnation of the fire god. When Lin finishes, he approaches, and Chen asks if he is alright. Tian says yes and thanks her for bringing him there. Something begins to beep. It is the item in her hand, and Chen immediately throws it, causing an explosion. The protagonist is faster, grabs her, and protects her, and Chen thinks she needs that man, no matter the cost. Later, elsewhere, Chen asks if he is saying that he absorbed all the fire attribute spiritual energy from the construction site into his body. Lin confirms and asks if it will cause problems for her, but Chen assures there will be no issue and asks what realm he is currently in. Tian replies that he must be at the peak of level 4 of the stagnant spring realm, almost reaching level 5, and Chen questions whether he is only level 4 with that strength. The protagonist states that his cultivation method is special and he does not know how to explain it. And Chen says all cultivators have their secrets and that if he does not want to say, she will not insist. Lin thanks her for understanding. Chen asks if he has considered enlisting in the armed forces and comments that the benefits there are better than those of that despicable association. Tian says that for now, he has no plans to enlist. Chen says she will not pressure him, but she must report the day's events so she will not have trouble explaining it to her grandfather. At night, Yue receives a message from the director, asking if she can call Lin later for a mission. Dark Night Ghost Shadow. Yue looks at the message, closes the book, and leaves. In the room, the protagonist is lying down and smells something pleasant, thinking that although Yue does not talk much, her cooking skills are truly excellent. He goes to the kitchen and comments that her breakfast is delicious, but is confused to see that the one there is the daughter of the military commander. He asks why she is also in his house and where she got the key, and Chen replies not to worry because she requisitioned the house as a secret military location through official channels. Tian says that does not seem to have anything to do with official procedure, goes to another room and tells her to show herself, asking if she cannot even watch him properly, but there is no one in the bed. The protagonist asks where she is and Chen replies that there was no one in the house when she arrived, wondering if Yue knew they were coming and deliberately left. Lin notices something, opens a book, and wonders about this Dark Night Ghost Shadow mission, imagining whether Yue went alone. Chen asks where he is going in such a hurry, and Tian replies that his partner is in trouble and he needs to find the director immediately. Elsewhere, near the river, the water begins to move as Yue, underwater, wonders whether she is completely useless without Lin and thinks that, in the end, she is still too weak, until she stops, releases her power, and freezes something ahead, smiling as she thinks she understood, but a sound echoes. Her eyes widen as the monster approaches with a huge mouth and continues attacking without causing damage, while roots coil around her and begin suffocating her. Yue panics, feeling her spiritual energy being drained, concluding that she cannot let the monster devour more, or it will grow even stronger. The creature moves its tail and hits her in the back, injuring her, and she wonders if she will be devoured. Then, lightning appears and the protagonist arrives, asking if she's alright. Yue tells him to leave quickly because the monster is absorbing spiritual energy. Lin grabs her, moves quickly, and tells her to hold on because he will get her out first. Tian emerges from the water and Chen says he is back, asking if he has dealt with the unusual beast. And the protagonist replies that he has not and asks them to wake Yue first. Chen says she will take her to the hospital immediately, and Lin thinks that as soon as his partner is safe, he will deal with the monster. In the hospital, Yue is hospitalized, and the director thanks Tian, saying that if not for him, his daughter would certainly have been finished. The protagonist says he does not need to be so formal and asks for more details about the mission. Liu explains that the monster is called the Dark Night Ghost Shadow, monitored for at least half a year. Tian is surprised and understands that this means that, at that time, fewer than 10 people in the world had had contact with cultivation. The director explains that they have never seen its true form and suspect it is a darkness attribute monster, hiding in the depths of the sea while devouring spiritual energy, and that after the recent resurgence of spiritual energy, it has become extraordinarily powerful and must be eliminated immediately to prevent a catastrophic disaster. He then asks if Tian can take on the task, and the protagonist says yes but needs a favor. Elsewhere, Chen is on the phone, asking why her grandfather is letting Tian take something so dangerous. The old man replies that it is a test for him and also for the country. Chen says he should not receive a mission of that level at the very beginning, recalling that in the previous Dark Knight Ghost Shadow mission, the military sent a professional team, and even the weakest cultivator was at level 3 of the stagnant spring realm, and yet they failed. The grandfather says he knows she cares about the boy but has no choice, and remembers that they sent 3 elite soldiers to help them this time, stating that the world has changed drastically with the resurgence of spiritual energy, and that if they fall behind, they will be invaded and plundered by other countries. Dark Knight Ghost Shadow is the lowest A-class danger zone they can currently control, and overcoming that category will give the country a voice in the world. Chen thinks that Lin must return alive. Elsewhere, inside a moving car, Yu calls for the captain, and Tian asks what happened. Qing asks what mission they will carry out, why only she is going and whether the others are not going. And the protagonist explains that among the 4, only she has reached level 3 of the stagnant spring realm, and he must check whether she has not slacked off in cultivation, giving her the mission details. Yu says she will try her hardest and will not be a burden to him. Lin tells Qing not to be so nervous and to treat it as an experience, remembering that the director said the military would send people to help. Qing replies that she will do her best to bring him glory. The driver announces they have arrived at the port, and everyone gets out of the car. A young man ahead comments that cultivators nowadays are getting younger and younger, and Tian thinks that level 4 of the stagnant spring realm, under the current circumstances, truly is already considered a master. He asks if they are from the armed forces. The young man introduces himself as Zhou Mu and says he hopes he will not hinder them later. Yu asks what he means and whether he knows what the captain's greatest quality is. The woman ahead tries to calm the atmosphere, saying that Zhou speaks harshly and they should not mind it since they still need to resolve the crisis together, and internal conflict now would be useless. The blonde man tells everyone to move on, and the protagonist tells his partner that there is no problem and they should not mind what others say, only do their part. Everyone enters the water, and Zhou comments that something is draining the spiritual energy from their bodies. The blonde explains that it is the corrosive ability of the darkness attribute and asks for caution. The redhead says that living there for too long would shorten anyone's life. Yu says she wants to vomit and asks why the sea gives off such a rotten smell. Lin sighs, releases mana around the two of them, and dissipates the bad smell, saying that this will help her resist part of the effects of the dark attribute and that she must not disappoint him afterward. Zhou looks back and thinks that everyone should be feeling sick, concluding that Lin especially should be terrified, and wonders how they can act as if nothing is wrong. He believes they used all their spiritual energy to resist the dark attribute and will probably be unable to move when real danger appears. The blonde asks what that is and warns them to be careful when something moves quickly around them. Zhou says the monster must be close, and a creature approaches with a terrifying aura. Yu releases her power, but the protagonist tells her not to rush and to watch carefully, stating that that fish is not the monster's true form. Zhou punches, causing a large impact, and tells the boy not to get distracted because one wrong step there can be fatal. Qing calls Zhou stupid, saying that it is an illusion and asking if he can't see that. Zhou says she's talking nonsense, until the woman beside them tells him to be careful when tentacles rise toward them. The blonde feels pain, asks what is happening and where the tentacles came from. Ahead, a giant octopus appears, and the soldier identifies it as level 5 of the stagnant spring realm. The blonde says he now understands why they failed last time. Yu uses the ice scythe waltz slash technique, but Zhou says she has no chance against that thing. Qing thinks she can't disappoint her captain under any circumstances and wants to show her strength. Some parts of the octopus freeze, making Yu excited, but the monster breaks the ice easily. Zhou tells them to run, but the octopus hits the blonde and the soldier spits plasma, creating an explosion. Qing fears for her life. A voice says it was a good effort, and the protagonist appears, blocking the attack, telling her that next time she should be more cautious. The soldier, surprised, asks if that boy truly blocked the tentacle's attack, and the blonde asks if his spiritual energy is of the fire attribute, saying that it doesn't resemble anything he has ever seen. Zhou asks how such powerful fire spiritual energy can exist and whether it comes from that boy. Lin looks at the octopus and says that it pierced his partner with tentacles during the day, so now he will pierce the monster, finding it more than fair, saying that this is a perfect opportunity to test the golden technique he just created. Tian advances quickly, moves his sword and strikes the octopus. Zhou calls it foolishness and says that the body of a level 5 cultivator cannot be harmed by a broken knife. The protagonist activates the immortal art of the holy flame, making intense flames appear around the sword and envelop the enemy's body. The octopus widens its eyes before an extremely powerful explosion occurs. Joe, astonished, asks what is happening, what power that is, and says that what the commander said was true. Mu remembers when he told the commander he was giving too much credit to the boy, saying that Lin was just an independent cultivator with no resources or military training, and asked how far someone like that could go. The commander replied that he knew of his pride, but Lin's strength should not be underestimated, for to ordinary people, cultivators are like someone looking down a well, trying to observe the moon in the sky. And to cultivators of that stage, Lin was like a grain of dust contemplating the vast firmament, someone who could only be a friend and never an enemy. In the present, Joe wonders if he is really human, imagining how far he could go with such absurd talent combined with military resources, and concludes that the young woman must be his subordinate since she remains calm and serene in the face of danger, already at level 3 of the stagnant spring realm at such a young age, with an unlimited future making Joe feel old. The soldier asks if he is injured, the blonde asks why he is distracted, and Joe answers that he was just desperate to survive. The blonde says it's fine and that he only needs to buy a drink later, and Joe says he will apologize first and then they will drink until they fall asleep, thanking the boy for saving him and his companions, and admitting he was wrong earlier, to which the protagonist says not to worry, and Joe thanks him again. Yu complains that she stinks and tells everyone to go up. When they emerge, Lin notices something behind them and Ching asks what it is, but Tian says to go up first because he wants to check what is down there, swimming until he finds flowers and something shining, 2-star flowers, and thinks that both Yu and Yue will be able to use them to improve their strength. Somewhere else, Lin comes out of the river and asks where he is until a soldier calls him. Tian is surprised that he did not sense anything when the man approached and asks who he is. The young man introduces himself as Lei Nuo, the young lady's bodyguard, handing him a card and saying that a few days ago she was on a mission and they couldn't find her immediately, and that if she needs help, she can call that number. The protagonist asks who the young lady mentioned is, and Lei answers that it is Chen. Lin thinks he knew it because the only person he knows who would have such a skilled bodyguard is her, and concludes that he cannot gauge that man's strength, wondering if he is a cultivator of the Iron Vein realm. Tian asks why he was looking for him and about his friends, and Nuo replies that Miss Yu has already been sent home in a private car, and that Zhou and his 2 companions have been detained by the military, and he is there because the commander wishes to see him. Tian widens his eyes and asks if it is the commander of the armed forces, and Lei confirms, saying that he wants to talk to Lin and asks him to come along. The protagonist gets in the car and asks if he is the commander, and the man replies that he must be Lin, saying that his granddaughter hasn't stopped talking about him these past few days and asking him to sit. He comments that he heard that Lin sealed celestial fire inside his body, and Tian confirms. The commander says that in a world marked by the resurgence of spiritual energy, anything is possible, and that someone with such power appearing without military support is a blessing for the nation. The protagonist says it is just luck, and the commander says that he is exactly as he expected. Neither arrogant, nor shy, nor complacent, nor impatient, worthy of the man his granddaughter is in love with. He explains that the world has changed drastically and anomalies are becoming common, which will be a catastrophe for ordinary people who had no time to adapt. Lin says not to worry because if he finds something that harms civilians, he will never stand by and do nothing. The commander says he is not trying to restrain him or morally pressure him, but hopes he improves his strength as quickly as possible. Among all attributes, the dark attribute is the most problematic because it corrupts living beings and turns them into mindless monsters. And the lightning attribute is the best to counter it, so he needs to strengthen himself quickly for his own sake and also for the country. Tian replies yes and promises to train diligently. The commander hands him a military phone explaining that it cannot be intercepted and that Lin may ask for help at any time. The protagonist thanks him and says that he actually needs help with something. That is the weapon he received from the director, and he thought that sword could withstand his spiritual energy. The commander thinks he remembers that knife was Lu's most precious item, and imagining that it was damaged like that makes him wonder how strong the spiritual energy inside that boy is, telling him to leave the weapon with him because he will ask someone to make a more durable blade in a few days, and Lin thanks him. Upon stepping out of the car, Tian thinks that there is truly no time to rest when his phone rings and he asks what happened. Liu replies that Yue is not well, making the protagonist ask what occurred. Inside the hospital room, voices say that her heartbeat is dropping continuously, and they need to find a way to remove the negative spiritual energy, while another doctor disagrees, saying that if they extract the remaining energy, she will lose control. Outside, the director has his hand on his face, blaming himself for everything, until someone arrives and says he is there. Liu states that Tian has finally arrived, and the protagonist asks how his partner is, remembering that she was fine when he left. The director asks if he knows the characteristics of dark attribute spiritual energy, and Tian replies that it can drive living beings to madness, asking if that is possible. Liu confirms, saying that Yue has always been determined since she was a child, and after Tian saved her, she began doubting her own abilities. So she went on a mission without consulting him, and he should have allowed her to accompany him before assigning the mission. The protagonist begs the system for a way to save her, and the system notifies that if he touches her body for 3 minutes, it will detect an adequate treatment method. Tian agrees and runs into the room. The doctors ask who he is and tell him to get out, but Tian says that if he cannot cure her, he should not make a spectacle and touches Yue, thinking that the system must save her. The doctor asks if he has watched too many romance stories to think he can cure someone just by holding their wrist, tells them to continue the treatment, and asks why the security guards let that boy in. The director intervenes, saying that he was the one who authorized it, and the doctor steps back, saying he did not mean to offend, only to explain that the patient is in critical condition. Liu orders them to let the boy try, saying that if he fails, the blame will be entirely his. The doctors are shocked, wondering who that young man could be for the director to say something like that. The system detects the method and displays the treatment plan. Tian says there is a way to save her, but everyone needs to step back, and when the doctor asks why, the protagonist replies that in his current state, he can guarantee only her safety, not his own. Liu orders them to obey and everyone leaves. Lin summons a flower, releases his power into the water, and gives it to Yue to drink, causing tremendous energy to spread around her, and Tian promises he will do everything to ensure she survives. Sometime later, Yue wakes up confused, and the protagonist says she finally woke up, asking her not to push herself so hard next time. She asks whether he was the one who saved her, and Tian confirms it, saying that fortunately he found 2 star flowers on the ocean floor, otherwise he wouldn't have known how to treat her. Yue asks if he thinks she was getting in his way, and Tian asks why she thinks that, saying she is a powerful level 3 cultivator of the stagnant spring realm and at that stage is practically invincible in the world. Yue says she is still weaker than him, and Tian tells her not to dwell on that, because it's not that she's weak, but that he is simply too strong, asking whether she has ever met anyone as powerful as him. Yue thinks that indeed, before meeting him, she rarely encountered opponents, and even the director believes she might surpass him in 5 years. The protagonist says that since she is fine, he will go rest because he didn't sleep all night and asks her to meet him in the forest the day after tomorrow for rehabilitation training, telling her not to be late. In the forest, a monster charges and Yue strikes it. Lin says he knew she was incredible because that mutant wolf had strength equivalent to peak level 3 of the stagnant source realm, and she defeated it with a single kick, concluding that her current strength is comparable to level 4 of the stagnant spring realm, but Yue replies that he doesn't need to flatter her because she knows her own strength. Tian says the rehabilitation training is almost finished when an extremely loud sound echoes, making Yue ask whether that was an explosion. The system notifies that a strong dark attribute spiritual energy has been detected, and they need to be careful. The protagonist states that it wasn't a simple explosion, but a wave of dark spiritual energy coming from deep within the forest. The next day, some people sit next to tents, and Jiang says he will catch a big fish later to make a huge skewer for Tong, who angrily replies that no one cares about his skewer, helping her partner set up the tent. The boy beside them asks whether Jiang is having trouble with her, and he replies that he saw a beautiful girl a few days ago, which puts Tong in a bad mood. The boy says that if Jiang is going after other girls, he should at least hide it from her, and Jiang comments that that girl was incredible, surprising the boy who says he wants to meet her if he gets the chance. Tong pulls his ear, telling him to set up the tent immediately, and the boy says that's exactly what he was saying and she knows he loves her very much. Jiang decides to gather firewood and elsewhere in the forest. While collecting it, notices something shining ahead and wonders what it is. He remembers the news on TV when the United Global Council announced that Earth has entered the era of global spiritual energy resurgence, and experts said several places around the world are full of opportunities. Jiang then thinks of Chen because of her purple hair and sees that the shining object is also purple. Filled with resentment, he tells himself he will crush Lin under his feet and turn him into a stray dog in front of that woman, just as he himself was humiliated before Tong. Jiang puts the object in his mouth, starts feeling sick, and screams as a terrifying aura bursts out, smiling sinisterly and saying he finally feels power, incredible power. Tong screams for help with her 2 partners surrounded by wolves, and Jiang charges in, asking if his girlfriend is okay. Tong tells him to be careful because they are wolves, but Jiang, while striking them, says not to worry because that pack is like ants to him now. Tong wonders what is happening, how he suddenly became so strong, and whether a human can reach such a level, while the boy says he must have become a spiritual energy cultivator like the news talked about. asking if it isn't true. Tong questions whether that is really a cultivator and thinks someone so powerful can only be a man destined for her. On the other side of the forest, the protagonist tells his partner to be careful because they are approaching that mass of dark spiritual energy, and Yue confirms she can feel it. Lin asks her to wait a moment and they leap into a tree, watching several wolves running. Yue asks what happened to those mutant wolves, and Tian notices the wounds were inflicted by dark attribute spiritual energy. Yue asks if they should notify Director Lu, but the protagonist says they need to investigate first, otherwise Lu will send people unnecessarily. He moves quickly and says that before anything else he promised the commander he wouldn't let those wolves enter the city so arrogantly, releasing his power and eliminating them all at once, calling Yue to move on. Elsewhere in the forest, Yue asks if someone is camping there when Jiang rushes forward, but the protagonist blocks the attack. Jiang thinks that girl is also beautiful, as energetic as the previous one, and wonders how Lin knows so many pretty women, saying she is very talented and asking what she thinks about having a drink later. Yue asks who he is and why he attacked her partner, and Jiang replies that he holds a grudge against Lin and will teach him a lesson. Yue says that if she hadn't reacted in time, that attack wouldn't have been just a lesson. Lin asks if he absorbed a dark spiritual energy treasure and became a cultivator, and Jiang confirms, saying he is now a powerful cultivator. Tian asks if he was the one who scared the wolf pack earlier, and whether he has any idea how many innocent people would have died if those wolves had invaded the city. Jiang says he became a cultivator and asks why he should care about the lives of weaklings, making the protagonist say that he isn't worth the time, and that in his current state he needs a beating, not a simple lesson. Jiang says he is no longer a cowering turtle and will show what a cultivator is. Laughing while Lin releases lightning and thinks that, judging by his spiritual energy level, it resembles level 2 of the stagnant spring realm, exactly as expected after the spiritual energy resurgence, where even a single fruit can cause such a huge increase. Jiang charges to attack and Tian blocks, hearing Jiang say he does have some strength. The protagonist asks if that is all, and Jiang says he is asking to be finished. They exchange blows and Jiang, shocked, asks how Lin can block all of his attacks, while Tian responds that he is weak and that if he weren't a cultivator, seeing him would be like viewing the moon from a well, and being a cultivator, seeing him is like a grain of dust contemplating the sky. Tian strikes him directly, sending him flying. Jiang wonders how that is possible and his partners run to him, worried, while Tong is shocked to see Lin so powerful, wondering if he really defeated her boyfriend and regretting having shown her cards too early. The protagonist orders them all to be detained and interrogated thoroughly to check whether anyone else obtained any advantage, and Yue says she will report to the director to isolate the mountain immediately. Jiang thinks he truly lost and doesn't understand how, when a voice asks whether he craves power. He appears somewhere else, confused about where he is, before a powerful creature, and declares he wants invincible power to crush Lin under his feet, willing to pay any price. The creature releases power toward him and Jiang euphorically feels the surge, saying this is exactly what he wants. In the forest, Yue says they will all go with her to the Cultivators Association to give statements, but a powerful aura bursts around Jiang. The protagonist warns his partner to be careful as intense winds erupt, and the boy asks what is happening, leading Tong to beg him to stop, saying she doesn't want to die. Lin remembers the commander's words were correct, and Yue asks what exactly occurred when the monster declares it has finally returned to the world once again. Yue asks how he went from level 2 to level 4 of the stagnant spring realm at once, and Tian says to be careful because that likely isn't human anymore. The system notifies that a minor dark attribute monster, the Dark Lord, has been detected and starts a temporary mission. Defeat the Dark Lord, rewarding the first spiritual energy attribute cultivation frame. The protagonist thinks he has never seen a monster of this type, not even in his past life, and wants to know what attack methods it uses. The monster says the flesh and plasma of those humans were inferior and didn't allow it to condense even a full form. But the spiritual energy inside Lin and Yue is powerful, and if it devours them, it will recover much of its strength, saying it will start by devouring the weaker girl first. The monster charges. Tian notices and blocks the attack. The creature says it's not bad and asks whether he blocked by accident, and Tian asks what it is and where Jiang and the others are. The monster replies that he isn't worthy of knowing what it is and must simply choose between surrendering or losing his life. Lin says it clearly doesn't intend to talk and he'll have to teach it a lesson, and the monster laughs, saying he really wants to do that and that it will let him first experience extreme darkness. The monster attacks and Yue becomes worried about her partner. The creature keeps charging and Yue unleashes her power against it, but the monster claims it is useless, that an attack of her level will not break its defense, and orders her to stop resisting and accept being devoured. Lin moves at high speed, piercing through the enemy's body and slicing part of it into pieces, asking if that was the monster's maximum effort. The creature asks if he really thinks he can fight just because he broke the seal of the dark space, and Yue says she will fight at her partner's side. The protagonist says he doesn't need help, that Yue can stay where she is without moving, because he wants to test how far his maximum strength can go. Yue asks what he means by full strength, and Lin releases an extremely powerful energy, answering that it is exactly that. Tian charges toward the enemy and releases his power at it, causing a massive explosion, and the monster asks if it is being restrained by a mere human. The protagonist asks if it is afraid now, and the monster charges forward saying that a human dares to look down on it and is asking to lose his life. The pressure rises and Lin watches calmly, blocking the attack without taking damage, leaving the monster shocked upon realizing he came out completely unscathed. Tian asks if that is all and says it seems the monster cannot even force him to use his full power, calling the situation disappointing. The monster thinks that Boy does not possess ordinary strength and that his power now surpasses its own. It then tries to flee, believing it cannot die there and needs to devour more humans, gain more power, and then return to eliminate him. The protagonist asks if he gave it permission to leave and strikes it with his powerful lightning. The monster screams in pain and abandons most of its body, transforming into a bat. Tian says that to survive, it sacrificed almost its entire body, and Yue asks if he is alright. The protagonist replies that he is, but part of the shadow monster escaped, and they need to contact the director immediately. Elsewhere, a voice announces that due to a mass of cold air, the city will experience heavy rain and a red storm alert has been issued, recommending that everyone avoid going out. The voice comments that something big will happen that afternoon and jokes about showing the classic trick of showing off and being struck by lightning. A girl walks complaining that it is absurd that the date was canceled just because it is raining, until a noise scares her and she disappears from sight. The bat approaches to attack her but is struck first, and a voice asks if she didn't hear the news. It is the protagonist who tells her to go home immediately because it is extremely dangerous and she must not go out until the weather improves. The girl finds Tian very handsome. The phone rings and Lin answers, asking what the situation is. Yue says that the dark creature that escaped is even more troublesome than they imagined, because it seems to have divided into countless bats that began attacking people indiscriminately in the city. These bats devour human spiritual energy, and some have already reached level 2 of the stagnant source realm, evolving non-stop. Tian thinks they intend to use the entire population as an energy source, and if they reach level 3 of the stagnant spring realm and regroup into the original shadow creature, it will be nearly impossible to deal with it. The sky darkens everywhere and the monster, now in bat form, plans to devour everyone to restore its maximum strength and make the human pay a terrible price. In another area, trucks move forward, soldiers prepare, and civilians comment, asking if this is the end of the world and saying they saw a bat in person. Chen gets irritated, saying it is frustrating to see so many people posting things that spread panic, and asks if it is not enough that the monsters are already strong, criticizing how thousands of soldiers could erase millions of posts. Lei says that if they went offline, the panic would be even worse, and Chen says she knows but needed to vent. She asks if the army has not broken through the lines yet since half an hour has passed. Nuo responds that all roads leading to Tianhai City are blocked by bats around level 3 of the stagnant source realm, so they will not be able to enter anytime soon and must be patient. Chen thinks that Lin better not get himself into trouble. Elsewhere, the protagonist walks with his partner, and Fang, along with his group and Yu, recognizes him arriving. Lin asks if everyone is alright, and Qing explains that she and her sister were training when the director called them and they realized the anomaly had begun. Fang comments that when the anomaly appeared, he was eating skewers with his subordinates and barely had time to react before a mutant bat lunged at one of them, being smashed by a single punch. After that, he simply stuck it on a giant skewer and shared the meal with the group, while Tian jokes that he hopes no one ends up with a stomachache. Everyone gathers in the room and the director says that since they are present, they can begin the video conference with the military. Liu informs the commander that everyone is ready, and the commander states that with everyone from the Spiritual Energy Association gathered, they will begin discussing the rescue plan for Tianhai City. He explains that the main east and west highways have been blocked by swarms of mutant bats, and that a huge energetic reaction is concentrated in the Citizens Plaza to the southeast, possibly the core controlling these creatures. Everyone watches the screen in silence while the protagonist notices Li acting strangely. The commander outlines the plan. They will open a path through the East Highway, create a passage, and then lead the citizens from the plaza to evacuate before heavy bombing. To speed up the process, they need the association members to find an alternative route and begin the preliminary evacuation of the population. According to the detection department's calculations, the entire operation must be completed in 50 minutes. Otherwise, the creature in the plaza will evolve into something impossible to measure. He asks if anyone has questions. The red-haired woman asks if, in case the army does not arrive in time, the bombing will be postponed, and the commander replies that it will not, because at the final moment all firepower will be unleashed to prevent the creature's evolution. She asks how he can decide that and says it would be gambling with the lives of those in the plaza, reminding that if the monster evolves successfully, not only that group will die, but the entire city of Tianhai and even Donghai province will be destroyed. She then asks if there is someone important to him in the plaza and admits that her family lives in a neighborhood nearby, leaving everyone silent. Yu tries to comfort her, saying she will help rescue her family, reminding that she has been trained harshly in the past days and her strength has increased greatly. Fang agrees and says he will call his subordinates to bring the car. The commander then states that in that case she cannot participate in the operation. With tears in her eyes, she asks why, and he replies that a soldier dominated by emotion would compromise the mission, asking if she really believes that upon reaching the plaza, she would not think first of her parents. He tells the director that to ensure success, he needs to reassess personnel assignments. A voice asks them to wait, and the protagonist mentions that there is a fatal flaw in the plan. The commander asks what it is, and Lin replies that the bombs will cause no damage at all to the creature, leaving Liu confused. The commander demands to know how he can assert that, and Tian explains that he gravely injured that monster recently, so he guarantees the plan will not work and insists that they follow his. The commander asks what plan he proposes, and the protagonist asks them to bring the weapon he mentioned days ago, saying he will eliminate that dark monster alone, and asking for the commander's opinion. Elsewhere, an alarm begins to sound and Chen declares that, in the name of the people of Tianhai, she must deliver that to Lin. A voice announces the beginning of the anomaly suppression mission, whose path starts at the East Highway entrance and ends at the Citizens Plaza. The commander reinforces that the objective is to escort and transport the weapons, with 5 squads divided to ensure everything arrives safely, no matter the cost, for the people. Chen advances with her men, repeating that it is for the people, while the bats charge together. Gunfire begins, but some soldiers are hit, and Chen orders everyone to attack alongside her while thinking she must survive. The bats accumulate in such great numbers that they even break glass, until a devastating power erupts and the protagonist appears, commenting that if he had known the situation would become so problematic, he would not have held back when he was in the forest. Yu asks them to wait for her while more bats advance, and Qing and Yue attack together, freezing the creatures. Yue asks how many of those things still exist in Tianhai City, and Yu says she senses the bats replicating as they absorb spiritual energy. Yue comments that if it were not for the black clouds covering the sky, their number would be impossible to measure, and Yu imagines how powerful an entity formed by all those bats united would be. Lin says there is no reason to worry, saying the enemy could not defeat him in the forest and will not defeat him there, reinforcing that the most urgent task is to reach the Citizens Plaza and find Shen and the others. Chen continues with her men exhausted and injured after defeating the cave bats, but a new group advances and Jiang appears among them, saying that she is his and that they have reunited. Chen confirms if it is really him, asks if he was responsible for the chaos in Tianhai, and if he has any idea how many innocent people died. Jiang replies that he doesn't know and doesn't care, stating that that scum doesn't deserve to live and that, to him, it's even an honor for them to serve as food. Chen hits him, but Jiang doesn't even move, leaving her surprised. And he comments that cultivators of spiritual energy are like wine to a drunkard. Jiang explains that if he didn't try to break through his strength, even by devouring the entire city, he would only return to his original state with half the power. But now, he can recover everything and even evolve by devouring others, stating that, just like that boy, she must also become his food. A power explodes between the two when Nuo appears, saying that the young woman doesn't like that guy and that because of that, he will have to die. The monster evaluates his energy and comments that his spiritual concentration is already at level 5 of the stagnant spring realm, stating that by devouring him, he will not only recover his peak, but become even stronger. Nuo orders Chen to take the others to meet Lin and says he will handle the creature. Chen asks him to be careful. The monster attacks, trying to stop their escape, but Nuo blocks with overwhelming force and ensures he won't go anywhere. The soldiers follow with Chen as new bats appear. She thinks they are too many creatures and notices they evolved again, since ordinary ammunition no longer causes damage. She questions whether she will manage to deliver that and whether Tian and the others will reach the building, but forces herself to stop those thoughts, remembering that they surely can and that she must not doubt. A bat begins chasing her with the drool dripping, but a massive power falls upon it and crushes it. The protagonist appears, saying he finally found everyone, leaving Chen relieved. He states that now that he is there, she doesn't need to be afraid and asks if she brought the object. Chen replies that her grandfather told her to deliver it and comments how heavy it is, asking what exactly it is. Lin asks if the commander explained nothing, and she says no, that he only said it was a powerful weapon. Tian takes the object and sees it is a sword, and Chen asks if that really has destructive power. The protagonist guarantees it does, saying he will show immediately and asking his grandson to step aside so he can help. Sun tells everyone to move away, saying he will make his move. Several bats advance. Lin opens the system, presses something, and the sword gains an intense aura. Tian unleashes the cross slash, destroying a large number of bats with a single movement. Everyone is impressed. Chen says that it is incredible and asks if he can teach her. The protagonist replies that yes, but explains that to achieve that effect, she will need to cultivate to at least level 4 of the stagnant spring realm. Those represent the only soldiers who managed to break through the blockade. And if all the others died, Chen recognizes the seriousness of the situation, saying that Nuo and Jiang are fighting and asking if she can go help him. Lin wonders if Jiang hadn't been devoured by the dark monster and if he really revived. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Nuo continues attacking with force, and the monster states that his energy will run out while its bats are infinite. The creatures head toward the ice spread across the ground, and Nuo realizes they are not rescuing their own but absorbing the residual spiritual energy. Noticing that some already evolved to level 3 of the stagnant spring realm, Nuo raises a barrier to block the attack, but cracks begin spreading until the barrier breaks completely, forcing him to retreat while thinking the situation is starting to become problematic. The monster comments that he's keeping a cautious distance and asks if he should interpret that as fear. Nuo advances and launches his attack again, but the enemy smiles and blocks it easily, leaving him surprised. The monster begins to laugh, saying he knew Nuo would end up cornered, and that he won't be gentle while using such powerful spiritual energy. Nuo asks if that guy is really using his spiritual energy to enhance himself, and the monster replies that he should be thankful for helping him reach his maximum potential, stating that because of that he decided to give everyone a quick end. The creature attacks with full force. Nuo closes his eyes and thinks that he is sorry until the protagonist appears in front of him and blocks the strike. Nuo tells him to leave immediately, saying that that is a full-force attack from level 4 of the stagnant source realm, impossible to block. Lin, however, stops the attack with ease and counterattacks, generating an explosion that leaves Nuo completely shocked. The protagonist asks what he just said, and, at the same time, Nuo asks whether the young woman is safe. Lin replies not to worry, explaining that she is fighting those annoying bats together with Yue and the others, and that Nuo should meet up with them because he himself will handle that and then return so they can discuss the next step. Nuo then moves away. Tian faces the enemy and comments that they have met again. Before eliminating him this time, he asked whether he would mind revealing who or what he is. The monster asks what he is talking about and claims to be Jiang, questioning whether Tian does not recognize him. The protagonist replies that since he does not want to say anything, then it does not matter, and that it will end in an instant. The monster asks whether Tian really thinks he is still the same as he was in the forest and promises to show the strength of his peak before attacking. Lin cuts the strike easily and asks whether that is all, leaving the monster surprised. A large number of bats fly around, and the protagonist observes, while on the other side the girls ask what is happening. Yue asks whether her partner also feels the energy from that black cloud, and Yu replies that the mutant bats are moving toward it as if they had received an order. Chen states that that is absurd, and asks how it is possible that the numbers are like that. Qing asks what happened, and Chen explains that according to the readings of the instruments, the object in the sky might be a legendary supermutation. She then describes the classification: anomaly, lower threat level, with minimal impact and usually no need for cultivators. Disturbance, light threats capable of causing small disruptions, normally resolved by low-level cultivators. Danger, monsters with significant destructive power capable of threatening small cities, requiring intermediate cultivators. Supermutation, creatures with enough destruction to devastate a small city, requiring several mid to high-level cultivators. Catastrophe, beings with devastating power capable of threatening large cities. Calamity, monsters that can destroy national defenses and that only a few cultivators can face. And finally, world apocalypse, the maximum threat that requires full mobilization of elite cultivators and defense systems. Chen thinks that Lin must survive and orders them to notify the director to send reinforcements, while she herself will speak with her grandfather, because they cannot let Tian face a monster like that alone. In another room, someone calls Captain Pan, but they cannot communicate with Squad 2 since the bats seem to be blocking electrical signals. The commander wonders whether Feifei and the others managed to break through, and another soldier comments that the bats seem to be gathering in the same direction, asking what is happening. A soldier says he can hear something and asks whether they are still alive. A voice replies that it is Squad 2's communication and that the signal has returned, informing Captain Lee that after the bats left, electrical signals returned and they can contact the Vanguard. The soldier asks what the situation is and tells them to report immediately. The captain reports that they were attacked by a large swarm near level 2 of the stagnant spring realm, but for some reason all the bats suddenly flew toward the sky, a situation also occurring with squads 2 and 3. The commander orders them to calculate the losses when a soldier approaches, saying there is a message from the young woman. The commander asks whether she is alright, and Chen replies that the situation is bad because a super mutation-level monster is about to appear in Tianhai City. Everyone is frightened, and the commander asks what nonsense she is saying. Chen states she is not talking nonsense, because those bats voluntarily left the outskirts of the city to deliver all the spiritual energy they absorbed to the super mutation-level monster at the center of the black cloud. A soldier says everything is over, the city is destroyed, and so are they. Another asks whether there is really no way, while a soldier holds his head, saying that a super mutation-level monster requires at least a cultivator at level 5 of the stagnant spring realm. The commander stands still, grinding his teeth, stating that he is sorry but cannot betray the country and hopes she does not hate him, because he has no choice. Chen replies that she understands and will not blame him. In another room, the commander orders everyone to prepare for a devastating bombardment, as they must contain the super mutation-level monster within Tianhai City at any cost. They cannot allow the disaster to spread to other cities. A soldier asks him to calm down and at least rescue the young man first, but the commander declares that there are only generals and soldiers there, no family ties, and that their sacrifice exists so the people they protect never have to do the same. Suddenly, someone tries to adjust the communication, asking whether they can hear and how to turn that on. The commander asks whether Lin is still alive, and Tian replies that he has not even gotten his granddaughter yet, and the commander already wants his termination, stressing that he does not say that out of malice, but that the granddaughter will hate him for it. He says they do not need to drop bombs because he will handle the super mutation-level monster alone. The soldiers are surprised, asking whether he's really capable and reminding him that it is a super mutation-level monster. The protagonist states it is nonsense, because if he could not deal with that, he would not be negotiating with them there, and that if the commander wants the safety of the city and of his granddaughter, he must cooperate fully. Everyone remains silent for a moment until the commander asks how they should help him. Lin replies that he only needs the commander's help with one thing, and that he will take responsibility for the damage caused during the battle. Meanwhile, the monster thinks that that is real-world spiritual energy and celebrates being alive, believing that not only has he revived, but also evolved to the maximum level of existence in the stagnant spring realm, level 5, feeling invincible and stating that they will regret not eliminating him in the forest. A bat emerges from his body while he smiles, but he soon notices something. In a room, soldiers ask how that is possible as the protagonist attacks him with a powerful lightning strike, confronting the enemy. Observing through the screen, soldiers ask whether that is the legendary lightning attribute and comment that it is far too frightening, stating that someone with that kind of ability is basically already a monster. The commander thinks that Tian did not disappoint him. In another location, 2 buses full of students wait while someone tells them not to panic and to maintain order in line when a huge lightning bolt appears in the sky. A boy asks whether someone is undergoing a tribulation and says he has never seen such a strong lightning bolt, imagining that it must be a powerful expert facing the 9 heavens lightning tribulation. Yu comments that that must be her partner's power, while Yue thinks that his strength is far too frightening and that believing reaching level 4 of the stagnant spring realm would put her close to him now seems like a joke. Chen thinks that that is exactly what she expected from the man she has her eyes on. A rumble echoes and the protagonist says that it is his turn. The monster attacks and Lin blocks, counter-attacking with absurd power. The monster activates a barrier, but it is destroyed and the strike hits him. Furious, he advances again while Tian dodges all the attacks. The monster states that if it were not for that sword, Tian would have lost his life long ago, and the protagonist provokes him, telling him to strike right there. The monster releases his power, saying that Tian is seeking his end, but when the attack reaches the protagonist's face, it does not cause a single scratch, leaving the enemy outraged. He states that it is impossible because that was his full power attack at peak level 5 of the stagnant spring realm, and asks how Tian came out unscathed, wondering whether he has already evolved to level 6 or even to a higher realm. Tian replies that if that is all his strength, then he will be finished right there. The monster thinks he cannot die in that place and that he needs to absorb more power to evolve and become even stronger, promising that when he reaches level 6 or 7 of the stagnant spring realm, he will return to take revenge on the boy. The protagonist states that this time he will not allow his escape, launching his powerful attack and destroying the enemy completely, causing a massive impact. The soldiers celebrate and declare that they succeeded, eliminated the super mutation-level monster, and saved Tianhai City. The lightning flame is described as Tianhai City's dawn, the dawn for all humanity, and the commander orders immediate start of rescue operations, ensuring that all the injured receive proper treatment. A few days later, the director states that the crisis in Tianhai was only resolved thanks to him, and that the military and the Spiritual Energy Association plan to offer rewards, asking whether there is something he wants. Tian replies that there is indeed something he really needs and asks them to grant it, asking whether they can get rid of those people quickly since his apartment is small and they show up there every day, making it impossible to live normally, and adding that those two are corrupting Yuhu. Liu thinks that Yue is not going anywhere, and that if that is the case, Chen will not leave either. If they are not leaving, it does not matter whether Yu goes or not. He understands then that Tian is asking for another, larger mansion. The next day, a soldier announces the main theme of the meeting, discussing the reward for Lin, who made a great contribution during the crisis. The first participant suggests giving him resources to turn him into a national super cultivator, similar to the national heroes of Western countries. Another agrees and proposes making him a major internet celebrity, claiming that this kind of image inspires young people to become cultivators. An elder questions this celebrity idea and says they must be joking, because Tian is not just a hero of Tianhai City, but a cultivation genius of the Xia Kingdom, and should be appointed to a high-ranking military position and be responsible for training future military cultivators. The commander asks if there are any other suggestions when someone enters the room saying he objects. It is Han, and the commander wonders why Han Feng has returned. Han says he heard from subordinates that the commander intends to honor a spoiled brat. The commander asks what he means by that, and Feng replies that a child who defeated a monster by luck does not deserve any reward. Soldiers protest, saying that is too much, because resolving the crisis in Tianhai City was not luck. The entire mission was recorded. Han calls the two of them trash and asks if they have the right to speak there. The commander slams the table and states that a level 5 monster of the stagnant spring realm cannot be defeated by luck alone, saying he understands the doubts about Lin, but emphasizes that rewards do not depend on Han. Han says that if they insist on rewarding him, he cannot stop them, but he will not agree. The commander says the meeting continues and asks if there are more ideas. A voice says that Lin did not help them for fame or fortune, and what he needs is not a title or internet attention. Everyone goes silent and the commander asks if he has a suggestion. The director thinks that since they have no direct relationship with the boy, he must step in at this crucial moment, because only he knows what Tian truly needs. He says he met Tian a few days earlier and asked if he needed anything. Tian clearly answered with one thing. The soldiers mutter that it can only be that. Liu says Lin's exact words were that those people go to his apartment every day, making it impossible to live normally. The director concludes that Lin simply wants a bigger house so that living with Yue and the others won't be so cramped. Everyone is surprised, asking how they didn't think of that earlier and commenting that it is true, since they forgot basic needs: food, clothing, housing, and transportation. The commander thinks the boy is implying that Yue and the others should not live there anymore, but since his granddaughter seems to have feelings for him, he will let things develop. He asks if they have already searched for any suitable large house or apartment in Tianhai. Han then says not to worry because he knows a particularly suitable house. A soldier finds it strange, saying Han had been protesting until just now and wonders why the sudden change. The commander asks where this house is, and Han answers that it is on Qiyang Road in Haishi City. The soldiers ask if Haishi is not under lockdown, stating that according to military intelligence, the anomaly there has reached level 6 of the stagnant spring realm. Liu protests, saying the Spiritual Energy Cultivation Association has never done anything against Tian and asks why make things difficult for him, reminding them that the purpose of the meeting is to reward the boy, not impose another mission. Han says he simply believes that if Tian cannot even clear out that house, then he deserves no reward. The commander asks if he is questioning his decision, and Han replies that he wouldn't dare. He just wants to personally witness whether the hero everyone praises is truly worthy of the title. Elsewhere, someone hands over a document and apologizes. It is the director, explaining that he narrowly escaped being cut off and that the military intended to reward Tian generously, but someone interfered in the process, and this was the result. The protagonist looks at the paper. It is the property deed for Green Lake Manor on Qiyang Road in Haishi City. Lin is surprised, thinking that the house must be worth tens of millions, wondering if they are really giving him something so valuable just like that. Liu says that if he doesn't like it, he can exchange it, even if it cost him his life. Tian replies that a house worth tens of millions is not about liking or disliking, but about deserving it, and that it will do. The director adds that, besides that, a level 6 mutant creature of the stagnant source realm appeared in Haishi the previous month, and the energy core of that creature is located precisely in the manner being given to him. The military has prepared a small team to accompany him to ensure a successful subjugation. The protagonist asks why complicate things and says he will go alone. Liu replies that he knows Tian defeated a level 5 monster of the stagnant source realm, but the mutant creature in Haishi is level 6, and Tian cannot act impulsively, because although the difference between levels 5 and 6 is only one level, the gap is immense. He says Tian is still young and should cultivate patiently, but the protagonist says he is already at level 7 of the stagnant spring realm. Elsewhere, a car moves while a voice asks who that boy is and why he demands cooperation, adding that the brothers at the camp have made no progress in Green Lake Manor for half a month, questioning whether that newly adult boy will accomplish anything. Han answers that whether he succeeds or not will be seen when they let him show his abilities later, adding that he hopes Tian didn't get here purely by luck, because whatever is inside Green Lake Manor will not let him leave alive if he did. The driver agrees, saying he believes Tian defeated the anomaly in Tianhai by luck. Otherwise, why didn't he attend the commendation ceremony personally? He claims that shows guilt. Han replies that arrogant brats need elders to discipline them occasionally. A woman intervenes, asking him not to let personal feelings interfere with the mission, as retaking Haishi's territory is the highest priority. Han answers that she does not need to tell him how to do his job. Elsewhere, the protagonist stands before the gate when the woman approaches, saying she is the secretary of the commander of the Haishi mayor's office, and that the two men beside her are Han and the second lieutenant, responsible for dealing with the mutant creatures in the city. Han asks if he was the one who faced the level 5 stagnant source realm monster in Tianhai, and Lin confirms, asking what about it. Han replies that it's nothing, he just imagines someone as tough and experienced as the Camp brothers, but didn't expect to find a handsome young man. Tian asks if they think monsters will go easy on them just because they are burly. Han says that if Tian only knows how to talk nonsense, he may not leave the mission alive. The protagonist tells him not to worry because he is a practical person and prefers acting to talking, adding that if they are afraid of losing their lives, they don't need to enter. The secretary says that although she does not know whether they get along, she hopes they agree on one thing. After entering Green Lake Manor, they must help each other. As no one says anything, she assumes they agree and begins explaining the mission details. After the resurgence of spiritual energy on Earth, a powerful dark spiritual energy suddenly appeared in Green Lake Manor, which became occupied by some unknown creature. According to detector readings, the mutant creature in Green Lake Manor is at least level 5 of the stagnant source realm. When Haishi's death toll reached 68, they managed to contain the monster inside the manor. She explains that this is all she can say and the rest depends on them, asking them to be cautious during the mission. Lin states that if she is done, they should go. The lieutenant asks if the boy is crazy for rushing in without even planning a battle strategy, and Han says to follow him and not let him escape. They keep walking while Tian observes the system and notices it is another dark attribute monster, the third he has encountered in a few days. In the previous mission, he received a new attribute as a reward and wonders whether he should choose the dark attribute, but instead selects the light attribute. In his previous life, he never reached the power he has now, so his understanding of light and darkness was shallow. To prevent what happened to Yue and the others from happening again, he chooses light and hopes it grants some healing ability. The lieutenant brings up again that he rushed in without a plan and asks if he had any idea. The protagonist answers no, but says planning makes no sense without seeing the situation firsthand. The lieutenant questions how reliable he is, and Han simply tells them to be careful. Suddenly, a wolf lunges and Han intercepts it immediately. The wolf retreats, and Han asks his partner if he is all right, receiving thanks from the lieutenant, who thinks that the strength of mutant creatures in the outer area exceeds his own and that the center of the manor must be even worse. Han warns them to be careful because that mutant dog is already level 4 of the stagnant spring realm and keeps attacking. The lieutenant observes that it is expected of their leader, who can fight on equal footing with a mutant dog of that level. The blows continue until the wolf is injured, and Han stares at it with killing intent. Lin asks if he has finished playing around and if they can continue through the manor. The lieutenant replies that the dog reached level 4 and asks if Tian thinks that is easy. Tian draws his sword, aims at the opponent, and eliminates the wolf with a single strike, leaving Han surprised. The protagonist says he will enter first and that they can take their time. Han remains stunned, thinking that he cut in half with a single sword the monster that fought him nearly to the end, which means the lieutenant asks if they offended someone they shouldn't have, and Han orders them to apologize immediately to the little brother, since they cannot offend someone like that. Lin enters the mansion and quickly notices something wrong. He wonders why, if 68 people lost their lives there, he can't see a single corpse. He asks Han if the military units removed the bodies, and Han replies no, saying they did what they could but only managed to contain the creatures inside the mansion, never advancing that far. Tian comments that if that's true, he fears the creatures inside aren't only at level 5. Han asks if it's possible that all the corpses were devoured, but the protagonist says mutant creatures prefer consuming spiritual energy, not flesh, and that in any case, they must be careful. He says they should split up and search and asks who wants to go upstairs. Han says they will follow him. Lin decides to go up while the two check the basement. Tian climbs the stairs without finding anything in the hallway but stays alert, thinking something is wrong because Even if the monsters had devoured the bodies, at least some bones should remain. He decides to test the new light attribute spiritual energy. Around him there is dark energy, and he keeps observing until he finally finds something. Meanwhile, in the basement, the two walk and the lieutenant comments that the place feels strange. Han says to be cautious and ready to fight at any moment. An energy shifts and they look startled before a sudden explosion. The two take combat stance and ahead, a terrifying monster appears. Both charge at the same time. The monster opens its mouth and releases its power, causing their impacts to clash violently. Han states that the creature's strength is immense. The lieutenant moves in to attack, hits the monster, but doesn't cause even a scratch and asks how that's possible, saying the creature's skin is far too thick. The beast opens its huge mouth to devour him, but Han charges in, saying he won't let it hurt his brother. He is struck by the creature and thrown far away, creating violent impacts. Worried, the lieutenant runs toward the beast while Han yells for him not to do that. Suddenly, an overwhelming power is launched at the monster, destroying it. Surprised, the lieutenant looks and sees that it was the protagonist who attacked with crushing force. Asking what the two are doing and if they really can't defeat even a weak dog. Han asks if he eliminated the Green Lake Manor monster with a single strike and what his strength is now. Lin replies asking what he's talking about, saying they haven't even seen the monster's face yet. Han insists that was the mansion's monster, but Tian says no, explaining that it was only a shadow avatar. Since explaining is too troublesome, he decides to show them directly and says he'll show them the real world. An intense light is emitted, reflecting in their eyes, and when they realize it, they're in another place where dogs devour people. Han observes in shock as the dogs notice their presence. He thinks that battle had taken great effort from him and his partner, and that there are still so many people there. The lieutenant asks why there are so many people in that place, and the protagonist says what nonsense he's talking about. And if Green Lake Manor is the monster's den, it's not unusual for many of them to be there. Han tells them to retreat, that he'll summon the troops and order an artillery bombardment, because otherwise they won't be able to enter. The lieutenant agrees. Lin asks if that mission isn't part of his reward and how he intends to live there if they blow everything up. He says there's no need for so much trouble because dealing with this kind of weakling only takes an instant. Then Tian makes a single move, releasing an overwhelming power accompanied by intense lightning that hits all the monsters around. Han and the lieutenant watch in shock, asking what level of power that is and if they were all wiped out with a single strike. The nearby monsters are destroyed. Han says he is incredible and that the Green Lake Manor problem is solved. The lieutenant agrees, saying he thought he would lose his life and didn't expect him to resolve everything at once. The protagonist responds no, explaining that the mansion's monsters haven't completely disappeared because those were just the least dangerous ones. Outraged, Han asks if he's really calling those powerful creatures inferior and what that makes them, who fought so hard. He says he must be joking, because last month during military reconnaissance, the strongest signal source was equivalent to level 5 of the stagnant spring realm. Lin says that means that this month the monster evolved into something even stronger. The lieutenant asks what the chances of victory are and Tian says not to worry, instructing them to stay behind him and not run around as he will handle the remaining anomalies. They keep walking while the protagonist eliminates all the monsters he finds. Han asks if that is the strength of a spiritual energy practitioner, and the lieutenant comments that he eliminated them so fast they look like bots leveling up. Han observes that in less than 10 minutes, all the monsters on the first floor were eliminated by him. Lin defeats the last one there and senses an aura, concluding that it's in the yard. He says he'll check and asks the two to be careful, and both say they'll go with him. In the yard, a terrifying aura dominates the environment. Tian looks to the side and asks what that is, seeing something gigantic surrounded by oppressive energy. The protagonist also releases a powerful aura and thinks that thing must be the mansion's leader. The lieutenant tries to say something, but Han interrupts, telling him not to speak because the older brother is gathering strength. The lieutenant asks what he's trying to do by accumulating so much power, and if that would be the supreme monster of the mansion. Han says he has only felt an aura like that from one person, the president of the Haishi Spiritual Energy Cultivators Association, a powerhouse at level 6 of the stagnant spring realm. He says that is a battle between kings. The creature moves its hand and Lin launches his power against it. The monster, now visible, is a bird. Han says that it's over and asks what they should do now and why such a powerful monster exists. Tian smiles and says he finally found someone with real strength. The bird stares at him and attacks, but the protagonist dodges. The monster insists, releasing power from its mouth, and Lin says it can come. Then Tian releases his overwhelming power and hits the creature head-on, making Han and the lieutenant comment that he is incredible. The bird begins to retreat and the protagonist asks if it thinks it will simply escape. Lin leaps and attacks with his extremely powerful sword. The bird lets out a shrill cry and falls to the ground. Instantly, without wasting time, Tian charges in and cuts it repeatedly. The lieutenant watches, saying that it's way too intense. and Han asks if he saw that, saying Tian is simply incredible. The protagonist says that apartment is his now. The fallen creature roars in pain as Lin raises his sword and announces he will send it away. With a final strike, Tian eliminates it. Han exclaims that it's incredible, but the protagonist says those weren't the creature's movements and that another presence is there, ordering it to appear because he can feel the flow of spiritual energy. An energy manifests and someone is summoned, saying that since Tian defeated him, he asks if he could spare his life. Han recognizes him as Wang and asks what he is doing there. Lin asks if someone knows him, and Han explains that he is Wang, president of the Haishi City Spiritual Energy Cultivators Association, and a powerhouse at level 6 of the Stagnant Spring Realm. He adds that the young man before them is a Tianhai cultivation genius, someone the military invited to help resolve the problem at Green Lake Manor. Wang says that if that's the case, he hopes they spare the monster because he would like to study it. Han says, of course, but Tian says no, stating that Wang has no right to decide the creature's life or end, nor to dictate what he should think. Han reminds him that Wang isn't only the president of the Cultivators Association, but that the military reclamation of Haishi City depends heavily on his support. The lieutenant adds that it's true that he is kind and used light attribute spiritual energy to save many soldiers in the military district, being truly a good person. Wang says that although the monster committed serious sins, perhaps it would be better to reform it and turn it into a friend instead of eliminating it, stating that all things in the world have consciousness, and they must use love to enlighten all beings. The bird keeps its eyes open. A power is launched and Wang covers his face because of the light. An attack advances toward him. He activates a barrier, blocks and counterattacks, causing a huge explosion. Wang thinks that Boy's power is immense. He asks what Tian means by that and if he's trying to be his enemy or humanity's enemy. The protagonist says that if he wants to know the reason, then he will tell him. First, that monster eliminated people in the village and must pay for what it did. Second, he never allows others to dictate his actions. Wang has no right to give him orders. And third, and most importantly, since it appeared that monster's spiritual energy has become abnormally strange. Han asks what he means by strange spiritual energy. Lin replies that the monster fears Wang, fears him even more, and that the fact Wang wants to save it is worse for the creature than someone trying to eliminate it. Wang retorts that in the eyes of the monster, they are both human, and that besides that, he sealed its movements with a cage of light, so it is natural for it to fear him. Tian says that if that is the case, he will use his special ability to see what memories are inside the monster's mind. Wang is confused. The lieutenant asks if he also possesses such an ability, and the protagonist explains that he accidentally acquired it after the last monster subjugation in Tianhai, allowing him to directly read a creature's memories through contact with spiritual energy. Wang thinks the boy must be trying to trick him. Lin releases his power over the monster, which screams. An energy spreads around the creature and causes an explosion, leaving everyone surprised. Tian comments that the moment should have been a little earlier. The way the energy was injected should have been different. Wang stares at him and launches his power, believing he was deceived. The protagonist counters and their blows collide. Han and the lieutenant ask what Wang is doing. Wang replies that since Tian discovered that, he has no choice but to eliminate him. Lin then asks if that giant bird monster was created by him there in the mansion. Han asks what nonsense Tian is saying, and the lieutenant confirms, remembering that Wang himself led the military against that monster before. Tian questions this, saying that if it is true, how that thing could have survived until he arrived there. Han suggests that maybe they did not advance so deeply in the previous battle, but the protagonist asks if he really believes what he is saying, stating that the monster started trembling the moment Wang appeared, as if he had done horrible things to the creature. Wang says Tian is very intelligent and asks if he does not know that smart people do not live long. Han asks if the boy is telling the truth. Wang admits that he created the monster in that house using spiritual energy, but corrects himself by saying he did not create it to eliminate humans, but to protect them. The two soldiers become furious and ask if he knows how many brothers they lost trying to retake Haishi. Wang responds that the endings were significant because they allowed the monster to evolve from level 3 of the Stagnant Spring Realm to the maximum level of strength, level 6. The lieutenant accuses Wang of using the soldiers' lives as experiments. Wang states that mortals will never understand the thoughts of high-level people like him and explains that by cultivating that monster, he could use it to eliminate other creatures and save human soldiers while also studying its evolution to understand how cultivators can better adapt to the resurgence of spiritual energy. He says the monster is completely under his control and that he has said enough, so it is time for them to leave. Wang releases an extremely powerful energy, and the system notifies that a potent light-type energy has been detected, asking if Tian wishes to absorb it. The protagonist says he must absorb it and begins immediately. The soldiers advance in alarm, thinking he's being attacked. Wang moves his finger and hits them as well, telling him to let him enjoy their screams of agony. The two soldiers are struck and begin screaming while Wang states that this is the price for crossing his path. Tian, however, releases a powerful energy around him, and the system notifies again. The protagonist comments that that energy was well worth it, not only for giving him a free apartment, but also for increasing his strength level. He jumps and attacks, freeing the two soldiers, and Han thanks him for saving them. Tian tells them to wait there, as it will be over soon. Wang, confused and irritated, asks how he can move freely and why he was not trapped in the light barrier. Tian asks if he truly thought he could imprison him, and tells him to be grateful for making him stronger, because he will give him a quick end. Wang asks if a brat dares to judge him and says he wants to see what his power is. He releases his energy and Tian blocks with overwhelming force. Wang grits his teeth as Tian appears behind him. Wang wonders how this is possible, astonished at the boy's speed, unable to dodge. Then blood splashes and someone falls to the ground. It is the protagonist standing, saying that level 6 peak of the stagnant spring realm is nothing special. Wang, wounded on the ground, says Tian is seeking his end. He stands and begins emitting extremely powerful energy, stating that he has been deeply angered and will show his true level 6 peak power. A magic circle is invoked. Tian comments that even trying his hardest, Wang will only manage to annoy him for a while longer. Wang moves his hand and launches his power through the magic circle. Tian blocks it. The opponent moves quickly, leaping with a sword and causing a tremendous explosion, but the protagonist says his speed is far too slow. Lin attacks him from behind and sends him flying. Wang states that even if he loses his life, he will never lose to him. An intense power rises around his body as he strengthens himself again. Surrounded by mana, Wang advances, saying he will show his full strike. Tian responds for him to come, as he will see which is tougher, his head or the sword. The protagonist raises his weapon, emitting immense power. They both charge at the same time, and Wang says this is impossible before a tremendous impact fills the entire area. Wang falls to the ground at the brink of death, asking how Tian's power can be greater than his and if his strength is beyond level 6 peak of the stagnant spring realm. Lin replies that he just reached level 6 and asks if there is any difficulty in that. Wang, shocked, wonders if it is possible he has already reached level 7 and how much time has passed since the resurgence of spiritual energy for someone to attain such a level. Tian says he has other matters to take care of and that it is time for him to go. Wang thinks he cannot die there, but the protagonist raises his sword and says he must pay for what he did. With a final strike, Lin ends him and comments that trash will always be trash. The lieutenant asks if that brother can defeat peak level 6 opponents one by one. Tian simply says to go check the condition of the giant bird. They observe the fallen creature and Han says to eliminate that evil monster and leave. The protagonist answers that it is not an evil monster, just another victim. Lin releases his power over the bird and it begins letting out a booming sound. The lieutenant asks him to be careful, but Tian says he is not like Wang and does not want to harm it, only help it. The creature remains still as he releases a light-type energy. Then, it transforms into an owl. The soldiers are shocked, and the owl lands on Lin's shoulder. The lieutenant asks what the hell just happened. Tian pets the owl and says he does not know either, since his initial intention was only to heal its injuries with light spiritual energy, but he did not expect it to transform like that after treatment. The lieutenant asks if he cannot see the past and if he can show what happened to the owl. The protagonist explains that that was just something he said to fool Wang. Han asks if they did not see images earlier, and Lin responds that those were condensed from his memories with light spiritual energy. Otherwise, he would not have known what to do at that moment. He says the problem is solved and that they will return, because later he will need someone to assess how much it will cost to repair the house. The soldiers ask, astonished, if he intends to keep the owl as a pet, but Tian explains that he had not thought about that. The owl is well behaved and would be great for guarding the house, and asks if they cannot request the military to increase the budget. Han responds that that will not work, that the military budget is limited, and besides that, it is the spiritual beast Lin saved with so much effort, asking how they would be qualified to raise it and saying it will be better following Tian than under military discipline. The protagonist says he does not need to be so nervous as he is being serious, but Han tells him to stop joking and asks how they dare try to steal his spiritual beast. Lin asks what he thinks about taking it back and letting the people who are occupying his house take a look. If any of them complain, then he will send it to the army. Later, elsewhere, papers are thrown and a soldier is called a bastard. A voice asks what kind of people make up his spiritual energy association. It is the commander, saying that the Haishi Association's practitioners not only create monsters but also use soldiers as test subjects. The staff member tries to justify himself, saying that everything is a misunderstanding and that he had no knowledge of Wang's actions. He claims that Wang was the most competent and experienced professional in the association, someone whose ability was undeniable, and that he himself would not dare offend him. The commander asks if he does not dare offend Wang, but dares offend the military. The staff member says he does not dare offend any of them, that he is just an ordinary person, and that most matters of the association are handled by the cultivators, leaving him powerless in daily operations. The commander repeats powerless and asks if he intends to use that as an excuse to evade responsibility. The staff member replies that Wang is a peak level 6 practitioner and that an ordinary person like him would have no way to provoke him. He says that, being ordinary, he has no means to oppose either the association or the military and begs for mercy, asking for a chance to live. The commander asks about that way to live and if he knows how the soldiers killed by the monsters met their tragic ends. When their families cried in despair, were they not also begging for a way to live? The staff member is left speechless. The commander states that from that day forward, all members of the Spiritual Energy Association will be thoroughly investigated by the military and tells them to cooperate. Otherwise, they cannot blame him for enforcing military law. The employee immediately says he will cooperate with the investigation and begs for leniency, asking that the association's reputation not be completely ruined, otherwise the practitioners would destroy him. The commander orders him to leave and tell the professionals to behave. Elsewhere, the protagonist opens the door. Yue asks if he is okay, and Chen says he's back. Lin thinks that perhaps this is what it means to have a real family, and that to continue living like that, he needs to become even stronger. Chen asks why he is daydreaming, and Tian responds that the matter has been resolved and that he also brought a pet for her. Yue asks about a pet, and the protagonist whistles. The owl flies and lands on his head. Both think it's very cute, and Chen asks where he got the owl, saying it's adorable. Lin replies that he found it on the mutant village property. Yue comments that to survive in a place like that, the creature's will to live must be really strong. The protagonist says it is indeed very strong, as that creature was a mutant beast at the peak of level 6 of the Spring Stagnant Realm. The two are shocked and ask what he just said. Lin repeats that the owl is a mutant beast at the peak of level 6. The owl just looks at them. They are scared, and Chen asks if it really is a level 6 mutant beast and whether it could peck them to death. Yue tells them not to move, as a beast of that level could shred someone with a single claw. Tian says not to worry, as it is very docile and would have attacked already if it wanted to. They should be more concerned with when they will surpass that level. Yue says they also want to improve, but strength cannot be increased on demand. Chen asks if he thinks everyone is a genius like him. The protagonist tells them to train hard because if they encounter a crisis like last time, he might not arrive in time to save them, and says he will rest. Elsewhere, 3 soldiers are talking while eating. One asks if they heard that the strongest practitioner in Haishi City was eliminated. The partner replies that he killed so many comrades that he deserved to die. The soldier asked what eliminated means, since he was a practitioner at the peak of level 6 of the Spring Stagnant Realm, questioning how he could have lost his life. The partner comments that it must have been a powerful mutant beast. The blonde says not to talk nonsense, as if there really were a level 7 mutant beast in the Source Stagnant Realm. But the partner insists, asking then how he could have lost his life. The blonde looks around to see if anyone is listening and says he heard that he was eliminated by a powerful practitioner from Tianhai City who also resolved a major crisis there in the past. The two are surprised and ask if practitioners from Tianhai are really that strong. Han approaches, asking what they are whispering about. The 3 quickly stand up and the blonde says they just came down for a drink and a chat. Han says that talking is allowed, but under no circumstances should they reveal any specific information about that Tianhai practitioner, or they will be punished for leaking military secrets. They agree and leave immediately. Han thinks they have no idea how powerful that boy really is, and mentions having heard that he is now a presence capable of influencing the international standing of the Summer Realm. The next day, Chen is sitting at her laptop, checking the most discussed topics. In first place is the mysterious and powerful cultivator Lin, who defeated monsters and helped the army reclaim Haishan City. Chen thinks he has become one of the most talked about subjects. People comment that the boy is truly fierce, exterminated monsters alone and reversed the course of the disaster. They say all this publicity is not just for show, speaking of him as if he were a god, and suggest releasing the development process for more information. Others comment that it is a dog chasing dragonflies, drawing attention for the controversy. Another says he is a cultivator from Xihong City, peak level of the stagnant source, and asks if he should be considered a strong contender among them. Others comment that the above cultivator is very confident and ask if, should Lin be defeated, he will not be exposed. They also say it's all interesting as the martial arts competition is about to start, and then they will find out if Tian is truly genuine. Chen watches the comments and gets annoyed, asking how that cultivator from Xihong City can be so rude. Yue asks what happened and why she is muttering to herself. Chen replies that there is an internet user called Pico from Xihong who claims to be a level 7 cultivator of the spring stagnant realm and is threatening to challenge Lin in the martial arts competition. Yue asks what competition that is, what kind of tournament it is, and how she has never heard of it. Chen replies that she also just found out and that her grandfather said the military is organizing a national martial arts competition for cultivators, aiming to encourage practitioners from various regions to dedicate themselves to cultivation and protect national security. She says she absolutely needs to win the championship and silence everyone. Meanwhile, the protagonist tells the owl to eat everything, saying that this is the most expensive bird feed, nearly 10 yuan per jin, but the owl does not want to eat. Lin gets annoyed and says it is trying to cause trouble, arguing that even ordinary birds are lucky to get millet and asking if it knows how much a jin of millet costs. Yue tells him not to worry and asks if he heard about the martial arts competition. Tian responds that he is not interested as he has other things to do. Yue asks why, and Chen also wants to know what is so important. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new content. Thank you.